React Basics tutorial. And today we're actually going to be showing you a Profit with JavaScript live coaching call. And we're going to give you a sneak peek inside the course. And you guys are going to see how our students will go about working and how they can benefit from the one-on-one coaching that we go ahead and do inside the course. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce all of our crazy, amazing students over inside of the Clever Programmer community. Guys, go ahead and say what's up. You guys are live on YouTube.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, guys?
What's up, guys? How are you all?
I love that every time.
Let's go, guys. Pump today.
Hello, beautiful people.
Let's go.
It never gets old. It never ever gets old. Love that, guys. That's the energy we have inside the community, guys. So without further ado, yeah, honestly, and this is just the beginning. We already have 150, 160, nearly 200 people live right now on YouTube as well. Holy crap. So loads of people tuning in to go ahead and watch today's live. Guys, are you excited for today?
Of course we are.
Yes.
Awesome.
Such a question.
Hell
Really.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Nice. Awesome. So with that said, let's go in and jump in about what we're going to talk about today. So guys, we're pretty much going back to how we normally did it and how we started the call off. So yeah, today the schedule is going to be very simple. I'm going to keep it high level to begin with. And I always do that to sort of give everyone some a high level knowledge. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner, it doesn't matter if you're a pro. This stuff doesn't matter. And never take a mindset of it oh, I've been coding for a while. I've been to loads of coaching calls, I know this stuff. Always kind of start with that fresh mindset of no, there might be one thing that I haven't heard. And that one thing is going to be the difference, which makes me a ton of money versus no money, right? Because honestly, it's the little gems. Just like when you're reading a book, you read God knows how many pages of a book, but there's one thing you'll take away from that book that will change your life, right? In most cases, that's what I find when I'm reading. So in today's build, well, not build, but we're pretty much going to go through React Basics. So right now I'm working on React Basics modules inside the course. So you guys will soon have access to a bunch of really, really nice React modules. So yeah, working around the clock to go ahead and get that in for you guys. But yeah, so with that done, we're going to pretty much go ahead and also it's going to be open Q&A. So this is a chance for you guys to pretty much scream what is class-based versus functional? What is all of this stuff? I have no idea. What is a key inside of a component? Pretty much go ahead and ask as many questions as you want. But yeah, we actually had a few people asking questions. So let's go ahead and warm up with a few more of those. So if anyone has any questions, feel free.
Hi, Sonny.
Yo.
So I have two questions actually. Since React is an SPA, right?
Yep.
So if one wants suppose if we want multiple background images,
Yep.
so there are two ways to do it. Either we just include it in our index.css,
Yep.
but then we will lose the functionality of having multiple background for different components. And the second way is to create a custom component that holds the background and holds the component within it, just like a child component, and it shows the background that we set using this CSS.
Right.
For
So
that parent child.
So this is to solve what
yeah.
problem? This is to solve having a background across multiple components.
Yeah. So the problem here is if we have two components that takes the whole UI.
Yeah.
And I want different background images when those component loads.
Okay.
So what I thought is just create a component that will hold other component inside it.
Yeah.
And another component with a different background image that will hold another component inside it, and that will be within a ternary statement.
So you can do it that way. It's going to get messy, and the reason being is because you're going to have everything inside of. You're going to have a parent on the outside, then you're going to have all these children.
Exactly.
It's kind of coupled to the parent then, which means that imagine you've got a tightrope, right? It's kind of holding tightly onto the rules that you set in that parent. That restricts your code in terms of how quickly it can grow. Also, we're nearly 100 people in this call, which is insane. But what I would say to answer that is maybe go ahead and instead of doing it in a way of doing it so I would honestly just go ahead and have it as different backgrounds for each component that you're rendering, as opposed to, but I wouldn't really have logic of having an outside component like a parent component. Because I'm not sure why you would want that. As in, why is that?
Because those two different components, they don't take the whole window space. They only
Okay.
take like 50% of space, and I want different. The client wants different background images for that.
For each of the children.
Yeah, for those two specific components.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and actually screen this out because it's actually a good client question that you just mentioned. So this is something which a client's asked him, guys, and it's pretty much a case of they need a requirement. And what is the requirement? So we have also, let me go ahead and turn off my, I use Flux to save my eyes when I'm working late. If you guys aren't using Flux, by the way, I recommend you use it. It changes your screen and gets rid of the blue light the later on the day goes. Okay, so let's go ahead and run through it. So what were you saying? So we have pretty much like say this is our app, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have children inside of it. So we want a background image. So imagine we had a background image across the entire app, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we had two components inside of it, say this is component 1, component 2, then what are we doing? Where did you want these to have different backgrounds?
No.
Or you want this to be the
there is only one component in one.
You want this to be the background.
There is only one component inside. Yeah.
Right. So in that case, I would just make like I would have app.js inside your app.css. I would have a background image, and then the children would be pretty much on top of it.
Yeah, but I know the question is a little bit different than this.
Yeah.
So you only have one component in this,
Okay.
the slide that you were showing.
Yeah.
Only one component.
Yeah.
And once there is a submit button in that component, so once that submit button is clicked, the page is redirected using React Router DOM to show different component.
Okay.
So the old component is totally removed.
Okay.
And a new component appears.
Okay.
And that is small, so it does not take the whole window space.
Okay.
Now I want different background space for the component that had a submit button and the component that appeared after the submit button.
Okay. Yeah. So what you could do is you could have, okay, so we're not going to get too far into it. Maybe send me a Slack afterwards. But what I would recommend is I would either use like the Redux. You could do this in Redux, as in you could, every time you go to a new child component, you could dispatch what the new background would be. And then you use that background in the parent component. So in this one, to be honest, this is something which I need to deep dive with you on because it's quite it's not as clear cut as the initial question. So I think it's going to confuse a lot of people. So go ahead and send me a Slack and we can go ahead and deep dive on it.
And you cannot do that directly with CSS. I think you need to set the child property of that in the JSX itself to do that thing.
Yeah, so that's what I tried, but as Sonny said, it becomes quite complex and tedious.
It's more a case of once we so this is a good example, guys. There's a problem which seems simple on paper, right? But the structure of your program can very quickly make it more complicated. So that's an example where it's more about how the structure of the code is as opposed to what I would say is look into something called styled components, right? And they can accept props.
Yeah,
and then what you do is if you combine that with the React Context API or Redux, you can pretty much dispatch a background into the global store and pull that into that parent component, render it whenever you need, and change it whenever you need as well. That's maybe a way to handle it. But go ahead, send me a Slack, and we can pretty much Yeah, actually,
first I will try that Context API pulled in with Material UI's styled CSS and JS syntax.
Yeah.
So that can actually fix this problem. That's actually a good suggestion. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome, nice. Okay.
Hey, Sonny.
Yo.
Hey, this is Max here. Can I ask a question? Yeah.
Go for it, dude.
Cool. Actually, this question may sound more related to me, but I think your answer to it may be also available for many of us because many of us can actually bump into this issue in the future when they're gonna land some freelance clients.
Okay.
So basically, I'm having a client who needs to build an online store. I'm in Russia, and this is an online store that's gonna actually target it on like small part of Russia, right?
Okay.
But so let's put it this way. So basically, this online store gonna contain a lot of items. It's about 1,000 items in a catalog, right?
Okay.
Maybe it's not a big one as Amazon has, but anyway. So what like on the general level, what technology should I use? Like, should I use React.js and to use component-based approach? But in this way, I think it would be really difficult to maintain this website and to add, remove, and update items and all this stuff, or whether I need to use some already existed approach, existed solutions like WordPress plus WooCommerce or any other CMS that's more suitable for my local market.
Yeah.
With this payment functionalities and all this stuff.
Two things to factor in here. So the question pretty much is, he has a client or he has some work to do for someone, and they're basically they have an e-commerce store with about 1,000 products or 1,000 worth of stock, and they need a system to manage it. Now, if you build things to consider, right? If you build this in React, Firebase, and things like that, you not only need a front end, you need payment processing, you need some kind of like management system around the payment processing, like as in you need an admin panel. You're also going to need inventory management. You need CRUD functionality, user management. All that stuff is factored in, right? The cost of that is quite high to go ahead and build that if they're gonna. And also for you, it's a lot of work. Now, I'm not saying it's not a bad approach. If the pay is right, it's definitely worth doing. But I would say it's more of an experience build. So what I would recommend is using something like Shopify. Literally use something like Shopify, and you can go ahead and take that to a whole nother level and get every single thing they need up and running, make the website look amazing using web development skills, and it's very easy to maintain, and it can be deployed on a custom domain and pretty much will solve their entire problem. So they'll be able to have payment processing, customer management, inventory management, even little things that we might not consider. For example, what happens if a product goes out of stock? That needs to then modify what happens if two people on the website, one person grabs the last item and two people are on the payment processing step. You see, like, as in if you're custom coding that, you need to then account for that when the payment goes through to check that the product was still in stock. Whereas Shopify do all of that because it's their business, right? So
but unfortunately, Shopify doesn't work for Russian market, unfortunately. But I think I can use just different CMS, like as you said, WordPress plus WooCommerce plugin or something else that's more suitable for my local market, right?
Yeah, I would say honestly, like in terms of freelancing, it's not always a case of doing the build from scratch. It's a case of what does the client need? How can I fulfill the client's needs?
Provide more value, and moreover, because actually the client doesn't have any IT or a very technical person on the client side. That's a very important thing that I need to consider, because actually client should be able to use that admin panel and to update products and to manage the stuff very easily.
Because remember, once you deliver, right, you want your ideal exit situation is going to be that you deliver, everything is built to spec, and then pretty much you can walk away and don't really have to do much after that. But if you're so tied in to the point where if they want to change something, they have to ask you to change a piece of code, then it becomes becomes a pain in the ass, especially when you're basically stuck to that job. And then it becomes.
I don't want to do it this year.
Yeah, so which is going to be something quite painful to sort of go through. So that's my approach on that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
Awesome question, by the way. Nice. Let's take one more question, and then we'll go ahead and jump into some high level stuff. So any more questions from anyone?
I believe there are freelance modules for us. Is that true? And when do those happen? Is it ad hoc or?
I need to speak with Naz. Does anyone know? Has anyone gone through? So me and Naz are right now restructuring a bunch of stuff. So I'm not 100% right now. But
Amanath mentioned something. Is it Amanath?
Amanath, yeah.
Yeah, he mentioned that Frank. I don't know who Frank is.
Fang? Did he mention Fang?
Oh, Frankie.
Oh, Frank. Oh, yeah. So Frank.
I would
Yeah, he
like to
does that
step
much.
in on this. This actually live call with Frank in the modules. If you go down, there is an amazing live coaching call that Frank did,
Yeah.
and he explains all the stuff regarding freelancing. You can
Oh,
get one or two things from there.
That's
where is
something.
it? Is it on the module side or where is it? Where
Yeah,
can I
on the
find that?
module side, after this success coaching live success coaching calls,
Yeah.
All right.
below that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay.
That's
Yeah.
going to be something I really do recommend you go watch, because I remember the session before that, me and Frank were talking on a live, and Frank dropped some amazing value bombs. So even watch the one before that, because the one before that led to that call, and both of them were really, really jam packed with value. So I'd really recommend that. And also, just to give you insight on who Frank is, Fitz. He's somebody that he's got 10 years experience pretty much coding, very, very awesome guy. And pretty much he hadn't done a lot of React, but he did one of the builds on YouTube. He did the Spotify build, spoke to Sonos and landed a 6-figure contract of 170K.
Oh, that chap.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember him.
Yeah. So
Cool.
he's awesome, and definitely everyone watch that one, because it's really, really high level stuff from somebody who knows what they're talking about in that space. Who is like, he literally,
Sonny?
he landed 170K. So no joke on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the tip.
Yeah, so I watched that live call, and actually he was actually making an entire Upwork profile in front of you. So it was like, if you want some help with that too, like I did, because I didn't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
So I was just a beginner in freelancing, so I checked it out. And guys, to be honest, that was literally so much jam packed with value. Like anyone could take benefit from it. Like I'm sure that even some experienced freelancers would take help from it. So yeah, it is something that I would definitely recommend.
Yeah. 100%.
Hey, Sonny.
Really, really valuable. Yo, what's up? Is that Sam?
No, that's me.
Oh, Joe. What's up, Joe? Hey.
Yeah, I
What's
had a
up,
quick
Sam?
question. Is in the planning that you're doing for the new whatchamacallit, live streams, is there anything that incorporates what Anand just talked about, the full-fledged Redux, different flavors of using the way how to use Redux? Because ultimately when you're trying to find a job in the market or trying to bid for a project, we did the Amazon clone, which is a good starter. So now you wet your feet. Now
Yep.
we need to take it. We need to take it to a next level where we do a lot of more Redux interaction, different flavors, different complexity. Is anything of that sort being planned, like in the modules, or are you planning to do like a live stream?
So ideally, the way it's going to work now is pretty much working on the basics modules to get you guys up to speed with all the React stuff, so you can pretty much run with that. Then combine that knowledge with things like the clones, right? That's my honest advice. Now, one thing I'll tell you is, before I answer the next bit about the Redux call, is I did not know Redux when I landed my first job, nor did I know Redux when I actually created my first company, which was coded in React. So that's just some kind of perspective around the matter, right? You can still go such a far way without Redux. So that's my first thing that I want to say. The pattern of React Context API, that pattern, whether you're using Flux, Redux, or React Context API, the pattern is where the value comes from. So as long as you understand that pattern, whether it's, and my honest opinion here is, a module is one thing, but the clones, literally doing the clones and getting that pattern nailed in, so that dispatching an action, changing something inside the store via a reducer, and then that being mapped to a component. There's just that circular pattern in Redux or Flux or React Context API. That's what you need to learn and sort of revise. Right, so that's going to be the most important thing. But to answer your question in a nutshell, yes, eventually it'll be a case of we're going to have plenty of Redux tutorials and things like that. I do want to flush out the different flavors, because we did the sort of cutting edge Redux, which is very new. It uses the hooks and stuff like that. But in terms of the actual workspace Redux, you're going to have the old fashioned class based map state to props, map dispatch to props, all that sort of headache, right?
Right.
So I think it would be something to look into. I saw Priyanshu said, what about MobX? MobX is actually something which a colleague of mine recommended once before. I haven't done it personally, but I would maybe say it's worth a read. I would actually say, rather than diving into MobX, maybe go ahead and check out it's a new one that React are pretty much pushing. It's their own state management. I always forget the name of it. It's does anyone know the name of it? It's it will come to me. It'll come to me. It's a state management.
Right, Sonny, if it comes to you, then just let me know. But if there's anyone who's struggling with Redux, I've actually dropped a blog today itself. So you can actually like read it up, and it's not like syntactical, but it will give you a good explanation of what Sonny taught us a few coaching calls back. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, go ahead and check out that as well. And it's called Recoil. That's it, Recoil. Recoil is something new. That's a state management library for React. It's built by the guys over at Facebook. So if it's built by Facebook, chances are they probably did a decent job of listening to what the community did with Redux and all the other stuff, and took a shot at making it themselves. And they did a bloody good job of doing that with React hooks and stuff like that. So definitely something which, if there's anything which is going to take off, I would usually go behind Facebook, the guys who built React, right? So I would usually step in and do that. Remember, you always want to kind of be like taking the name, like taking sort of a proactive stance in trying to get ahead of the tech curve, right? For example, before Firebase was even popular, I pretty much saw it. I was like, this is kind of cool. This might go ahead and it's worth taking those jumps, because worst case, okay, you just practice some cool stuff, right? You just got some new cool shit that you can pretty much use in the website. But best case, it goes ahead and explodes, and now you're an expert in front of the market, right? Which means that you can pay top dollar to go ahead and train all these other people who are now coming in. And that in itself, plus a job, is going to make you tons of money. So you see, like it's gonna really put you in a nice spot. So that's something I'd really recommend doing. But guys, I always want to go through sort of the high level stuff. So let's go ahead and jump into a quick breakdown of what we got here. So how many of you guys right now, guys and girls, have actually gone ahead and has anybody landed or made a single, like a dollar, any currency or any amount of money from coding? If you have, just raise your hand, right?
I did, Sonny.
Okay. So if you haven't, it's completely fine. Yeah. If you haven't, it's completely fine. This is why we're here, right? This is why we're here. So if you have, just go ahead, raise your hand. So let's go ahead and have a look. So we got Victor, we got Pedro, we got a few others, we got Lalit. Okay, dope. Yeah. So and
I'm proud to raise my hand right now.
Yeah, and we got Priyanshu. Yeah, Priyanshu is 13 years old as well, so it's awesome, right? Now, what I want to tell you guys is it's kind of like often quite a scary topic when you're first starting out. Like I remember coding, and I remember in the beginning I was like, how the hell do I make money? Like I can code all this stuff, but I don't know how to make any money. So I always kind of nail this in the beginning, right? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to do a little deep dive on that. So let's go ahead and I always forget my keyboard shortcuts. So ways to make money with code, or let's just say with React, right? No, let's say with coding. Yeah. So ways to make money with code. Number one, right? So number one is going to be, and this is all based on your timeline, right? So imagine we've got a timeline for when we code. So this is your timeline, right? And let's just put a little sort of visual indicator on it. So this is when you have zero experience. So imagine someone who's never coded before, and you can put yourself, say if you've coded 3 months, even consider yourself at the beginning of this journey. If you've coded for 3 years, consider yourself at the beginning of this journey just for the purpose of this breakdown, because it will make sense. Because if you've coded for 3 years, then you'll be jumping through this in a week, pretty much this timeline. If you've never coded before, it'll take you 3 months. So this is going to be 3 months mark, right? So 3 months at the end of this. Now, imagine we've got little stops between. We've got 1 month and 2 months, right? So this is the 1 month mark, and this is the 2 month mark, right? Now, let's kind of put out a plan. And this goes to every single one of you now. I want you guys, if you haven't got any plan in place right now, use this as a framework for sort of setting yourself the goals for the next month, right? So this is your next month, for the next 2 months, and then for the next 3 months, right? Where do you want to be? And if you haven't got goals right now, go ahead and literally grab a pen and paper or open up notes on your computer and take notes as we do this, because I want every single one of you guys and girls who are on this call, or even on YouTube, smash the thumbs up button if you're watching, by the way. Always got to plug that. But yeah, I want every single one of you to walk out of this session with goals in mind and literally written down. And these sessions are going to be holding you accountable to those goals, okay? So So this is your 1 month mark, 2 month mark, 3 month mark. So the first way to make money is through teaching and coaching, right? Now, most people don't even know that this is an option, right? So pretty much right now, what am I doing? I'm teaching you guys how to, like, whether it's coding or it's high level stuff in this field or whatever it is, this is all I'm doing is I'm just sort of coaching and teaching like some students, right? Now, you can start this as early as day one, right? So literally, I'm not joking. Like, I know it's a bit of an exaggeration, but the truth is, if you learn something on that first day of coding, even if it's how to make a HTML file, have some CSS inside of it, and change the header to blue, now you know how to do that, and somebody else who's never coded before has no idea how to do that. So you can already bring value to someone who has never coded before, right? So literally from day one, you can start doing this, right? Now, what would I say? In order to be successful in this, start by doing it for free. This may sound like counterintuitive, and you're like, yeah, but this is making money, blah, blah, blah. No, start for absolutely free. Now, Priyanshu, do you want to answer this question? Why should they... Why should they answer that? Why should they coach for free in the beginning?
Yeah. So guys, this is something that I can actually resonate with. So personally, I too started off coaching people for free. It was actually my friends, okay? So this is a really good way to start off. So whenever you're starting off, it's not about the money, okay? It's actually about the value that you can provide. Think about, like, if you want to teach a 5-year-old, how would you do it? Well, if you try to do that by like starting off with paid, it is a high probability that you might fail. Okay, so sometimes people are not good at teaching. Some people are just like they can't just teach very well, right? Like I can. So I taught some of my friends for free. Okay, absolutely free. I thought that okay, so I'm getting good at this. People are saying that okay, they're taking some value too. So how about I just start off by charging a very less. Okay, so I have started my course with like $15 a month. Okay, so it's not even like an hour, it's a monthly course. So it's not actually about the money from the starting, it's about the value that you can provide. Okay, initially if you can get even 2 to 3 testimonials, remember testimonials is key because that shows people that you have experience. No one cares about the money that you have, everyone cares about the experience and how much value you're providing to the other one. Okay, so that is the most important thing right now that I would say. So it doesn't matter about teaching it for free or not, it's about the testimonial that you get. And from that testimonial, you can tell other people that, okay, so I've taught this person and he was this successful. So would you like to just check it out? Okay. Try to offer them one free call. And after that, you can talk about pricing. So again, it's not about the money at the beginning. It's about getting the skill set in the place, getting the soft skills in place. And after that, if you think that you're getting really good at it, you can start charging.
Yep. 100%, 100%. Literally, and Priyanshu actually dropped some good bombs there, guys. So literally offering a free call, and I wrote all 5 because literally offer free stuff, literally free help. If you say to someone, right, I know how to do this stuff, and I'm going to do it for free for you, right? I'm telling you, the resistance to that is literally like you pretty much, if it's like saying, waving an iPhone in front of someone and saying, hey, do you want this? Like the chances are they're going to pretty much grab the iPhone and be like, sure, let's go. Like, as in like, yeah, I'll take that. Like, so do that. And then what does that lead to? It leads to you eventually getting testimonials, right? Testimonials are pretty much what, like, if you're on Amazon or eBay and you buy something, you check out the reviews, right? You check out, is this guy a 5-star seller or is he a 1-star seller? If he's a 1-star seller or he has no reviews, you're kind of like, should I work with him? If this person's got like 5,000 reviews and they're all 5-star, you're going to be like, holy shit, I trust this guy, take my money. Right? You see the difference there, right? And free teaching can get you that.
One more thing?
Yeah.
So if you guys still do not believe that this might work, take an example of Patch himself. Okay, so I said that I was on a call with him. So he told me that he offered the client was his buddy. Okay, so he just offered him. He told that, okay, so these are the advantages of web development and there's a lot of money in it, and yes, it's not that hard too. You can actually try it out yourself. And then he said that, okay, so let's have one free call, and after that, if you like it, then we can talk about pricing. Okay, tell me, would you yourself resist it if Sonny gave you a free call right now, right today itself, a one-on-one free coaching call, and then if he was like an amazing tutor, like he's an amazing tutor, we all know that. So if Sonny gave you a free call, would you actually resist that? You would just say that, okay, there's nothing to lose, right? So the other person has nothing to lose from you, only to gain, right? And now if they like your first coaching call, if you can make that coaching call enough good, think about that, the profit that you can make over time. Okay, it's about the long-term approach. It's not about the
Exactly.
short-term approach. So that's actually the main thing. Okay, so it's like not think like again that Sunny said, like give a one free call to every single client that comes to you. One free call, nothing much, just one free call. And then if they like you, I'm sure that they will continue. Like there's no point of confusion at all.
Exactly, 100%. And the main thing to take away from that is focus your stuff on long-term visions, right? So like most people are like, oh, this week I'm going to do this, right? That's good as a starting point, but you should be thinking, right, in 2-3 years, where do I want to be? In 5 years, in 10 years, where do I want to be? Like, I want to get like this house. I want to have this kind of life. I want to be financially free. That sort of, you should set those goals first and then kind of work backwards, right? Most people are like, oh man, I want a Rolex. And it's like, no, like as in, you know, like you could do a freelance job and pretty much like if you, and buy yourself a fancy like item, what's that? But you shouldn't do that. One, that's a bad waste of money. And two, it's not a good goal, right? So in this sense right now, the free call, yes, initially you're like, but it's free, like I'm not going to make money. No, you're building your skill set, which is endlessly valuable, right? So this will equate to however much money you want to make in the future, right? So like if in the beginning, all I cared about was money, like I'm telling you, I would have quit. I would have quit a long time ago. I would have been like, oh, well, as soon as I got hit my debugging hurdle, I would have been like, screw this shit, like I'm done, right? But it was only when I started coaching and teaching, and I actually started way late on coaching and teaching. I should have started way earlier, which is why I want each and every one of you to start this as soon as possible. Literally, you can use communities like the Slack community. You can literally use the Who's New channel in Slack to go ahead and see who's pretty much just joined and things like that. You can use YouTube. So people who are watching on YouTube, you can pretty much reach out to everyone in the comment section. You can pretty much go ahead and on Facebook. We have communities on Facebook. You have Stack Overflow. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Stack Overflow, although the code is great. but the main thing is you want to build that skill set, right? And coaching and teaching is going to be, because I'm telling you, if you say to me, I can write a functional component in React, right? I'll be like, cool, now teach that to me. I guarantee there'll be some ums and ahs in there, right? But if you keep on doing it and you get to a point where you're like, this is this is that, this is why I have this and this and this, then I guarantee, like, trust me, you will never ever forget that skill. And that skill will become like 2x, 3x, 4x as valuable as it is before you started being able to teach it. Right, so that's the first thing I want you guys to do. And this is going to be something you can start immediately. So you can actually go ahead and make a little bit of money from this, right? Now I say a little bit, it's all down to pretty much, again, this is infinite. You can pretty much go ahead and take this to like the sky's the limit at this point. Like Patch needed to make some income, and literally he took action. He started teaching and coaching. And just like Priyanshi said, it was his friend. He literally just reached out to his friend and was like, oh, you want to start coding? I'll teach you. And now his friend's paying him $400 a month, right? And Patch is somebody I coach, and literally, and this is what I taught him, and he pretty much did that, and he's making money off it now. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is pretty much freelancing. Now, we all know freelancing, right? We all heard the term freelancing. To be honest, I didn't know what freelancing actually truly meant until like way later in my career. And the only true reason why my freelancing took off was through, I started teaching and coaching and my name got out, and then people would share my name around, and then they were like, oh, Sonny, I need this website built. That's honestly how I got started in freelancing. So most people think that it's through things like Upwork, Wyzant, which, yes, they're great platforms. And to be honest, they're the ones that you want to go to if you want to scale in freelancing. So let's go through some action points actually before we go ahead and get too carried away. So sign up to things like Upwork, right? So sign up to things like Upwork. Wyzant and Take Lessons are good. So I think this kind of contributes into teaching and coaching, but I'll write them here anyway. So Wyzant, Take Lessons. Make sure you've got accounts over here. Also, what you want to be doing is build your network, right? Build your network, because believe it or not, most of my money in this space, in freelancing space, has come from my network. Without a doubt, it's literally not even comparable. Like you couldn't even like.
Your network is your net worth, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
The key thing to take away.
Your network is your net worth, 100%. And I used to always think, oh, networking is just a term that gets thrown around. But I'm telling you guys, like, this has made me more money than any of these services or anything, which is actually quite crazy when you think about it, right? So how do we build our network? It's kind of cool to say, it sounds cool, but how do you do that, right? So social media presence, literally, as you learn, post it on social media, right? And pretty much use my account, Kazi's account, Naz's account as examples. But one thing I would say, stay away from a problem here, and this is what I see too much of, guys, is I see people posting for the sake of posting, right? And this is, I'm not a fan, and I'll pretty much say this loudly, I really am not a fan of the 100-day challenges, because it's, I see loads of people doing it. But if somebody asked me to do a 100-day challenge, I'm against them, because yes, they start off like with a good intention, right? They start off with like, I'm going to code for 100 days and I'm not going to quit. But I guarantee by day 29 or 30, you're like, fuck this shit. I don't want to ever I don't want to post on social media ever again in my life, right?
That actually demotivates you a lot.
Yeah, it really sucks the life, the fun, the energy out of it, right? And the truth is that if you look at my account,
I mean, doing the program is one thing, then clicking the picture and modify it in Convert takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
I started doing that. Yeah, I mean,
it takes a long time to get social media stuff up. Yeah. I literally,
I've also done one set. What I've done on Facebook, I first commented that for 40 days, I'll be putting every day an article.
Yeah.
I did for just 5 to 7 days. 7 days I did.
Yeah.
And then some different stuffs happened, and I thought I shouldn't do it. It's happening ridiculous things, and I quit it.
Exactly.
So
and it gets
take
really
pressure on yourself.
It sucks the life out of it.
When it comes to posting things, like I always take advice from Amanat. He's very cool guy, and he's always ready to give advices.
Yeah. So I actually work very closely with Amanath, and Yusuf is somebody else that I work closely with. Yeah. They're basically part of the content team on Clever Programmer, and they're on the team for a reason, because they literally are very heavily involved, and they have a very good intuition for this stuff. But I remember I spoke to Yusuf when he was literally starting out. I remember Yusuf literally was like a very sort of like more reserved person on Instagram. And I remember he reached out and he was like, hey man, like I'm kind of into this stuff. I really like it. And I remember like, I literally said, I was like, okay, cool, man, let's jump on a call. And before you know it, I said to Yusuf, I was like, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a little bit of a test, right? Go ahead and build this. He didn't just build what I asked him. He built that plus like a bunch of other stuff. And he was like, I thought I'd try this out and just show you, right? And that's what I'm trying to say here. Like, just from that one movement, right? That one step that he took, which was one, he reached out to someone, right? So I see so many people who are just afraid to reach out. They're never going to take that jump and reach out. Me and Kazi started talking through Instagram, right? We just replied to a story and then we just started talking. So never ever think that something's out of reach, right? Always take a leap, always take a jump, and always go ahead and I would say like, if you want to start your social media journey, start with stories. Stories are better because they're more like you can just tap through it, and it's very quick to go ahead and put up a story, and the damage isn't, if you mess up or you put up something which wasn't great, it's only going to be up there for 24 hours and it comes back down, right? It's fine. But the point is that like Gary Vee says something really key, right? He's like, we all focus on content creation, right? And content creation is something which takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it becomes something like if anyone who's done a 100-day challenge or tried to do a 100-day challenge realizes that it sucks all of the energy out of you, because it's like every day you're trying to come up with a new idea. And if you try doing daily vlogging, you're going to realize like, oh my God, I'm trying to make my life like super, super adventurous just to get some content for a camera, right? Or something like that.
Sometimes you just need a break for a day.
Yeah, you just need a break for a day. But even better than that, make your content creation, not creation, but just document your journey. Literally change it from content creation to documentation, right? It's literally document your journey.
It's all about the mindset, actually.
Yeah, but document your journey, and before you know it, you will have so much content, it's stupid, right? Like if you sat there and just set up a camera while you're working, right, and make a little time lapse, and then you just wrote a little nice caption saying like, today I worked on some stuff, like this is what I worked on, bullet point, boom, 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 done. That's it. It didn't take you much effort to go ahead and do that, right? You did your work, and instead you just set up a time lapse and stuff like that, and you had it up. People enjoy that stuff. And not only that, it kind of gets you connected to like-minded people. Oh, this guy codes. Let me go and follow him. You see, like this girl kind of interested in coding. Oh, I'm a girl too. I can go ahead and follow her. Like, and the truth is like, it seems very like underrated, but what people would tend to do is they make like very, over cluttered and over complicated posts, and it's like day 67, hashtag, something else. And guys, just keep it simple, keep it clean, and you'll build your network up by doing that, right? Now, I want
One more thing, Sunny, that I would like to add is that if you are going to do what Sunny said, that make a time lapse, what's actually going to happen is that sometimes you might feel like, okay, let me just take a break, let me just chill out, let me do some Netflix or something.
Yeah.
But then you remember that, okay, we have a camera. So it's like, remember back in, like I'm in school, so like sometimes my mom used to teach me.
Yep.
So I used to say that, okay, my mom is teaching me and she's literally like in front of me. So how can I try to like act cool and act smart, right?
Yep.
So that's again holding you accountable. So that's something that I seriously feel even now. So yeah, it's just a fun fact. So that holds you accountable too. And yeah, sometimes you just focus because like again pushing you hard, right? So you just push yourself a little bit more and you just say, okay, so let's not take a break right now. I'm gonna be like, okay, Netflix afterwards, like at night, okay? So that kind of happens.
Yeah, dude, that's so true. That is so true. And me and Kazi literally had this exact conversation yesterday over the phone. We were catching up and he was telling me about how he started a podcast with Amberly. And the reason why he loves it so much is because it makes them both want to do it. And the reason being is because, guys, put it this way, right? If you're having a conversation which is like uncomfortable, or it puts you like, let's say me and Priyanshu just started on server-side rendering stuff, which I haven't touched in a while, and I don't know if Priyanshu has coded it with before.
Got no clue about that.
Yeah, but that makes us uncomfortable, right? So as in like I've done it before, but it's something I did quite a while back, right? But it's a conversation which will be like, but now, okay, imagine we turn the cameras off and we pretty much work on it. It's very easy to at that point to be like, do you know what, dude? We can just do this tomorrow, man. Let's just call it a day here. Let's just like maybe quit here or something.
That's exactly the concept with online classes too, right? So like if you're just turning off the camera, you know that the other person that's on the other side of this of the screen, he doesn't know what you're doing. So like there's zero way of you to hold yourself accountable. And remember, holding yourself accountable like by someone. Okay, just someday just tell your friend that, okay, so if I don't complete a few of my chores, it doesn't necessarily need to be programming, but say that if I don't complete a few of my chores, I'll give you $100. Now think about it. Would you rather give your friend $100 or just complete your chores?
Yeah.
That would be better to complete your chores, right?
Exactly.
It's the same thing. Hold yourself accountable in whatever the way you can.
And even guys, think of it in a way of like, even if you didn't add in the sort of money aspect of it, right? Just from the fact that like you have people watching, even if it's one person watching, right? So imagine you're working and you just live streamed, right? Now, the first thing I want to say to you is get rid of that fear of giving a shit about what people think. Okay. So every single person, even when I started doing YouTube, I was so obsessed with like, oh, you know, like, is everything in order? Is everything look right? Is the lighting perfect? Blah, blah, blah. Forget all that stuff. Just talk. Just turn on the camera and just start talking. Yeah, just be yourself, because there is only so much you're gonna keep with that persona that you're kind of going with. Once you've done 50 videos, I guarantee the persona drops. Right? So just drop it from the beginning, right? Oh shit, we got Corey in the house on YouTube. Corey, if you're in the coaching call, go ahead and jump in, dude, because Corey's got a lot of
literally
value bombs as well.
Not to be negative, like whenever morning 10 a.m. I have my college and I sleep at literally 6 a.m. and it's difficult for me to wake up, and like I'm just going to turn off my camera, I'm gonna turn off my mic, and I'm just gonna plug in the earphone and sleep.
Yeah,
that's the worst thing I've ever done. But the time I sleep, like, but if I'm guaranteed, if I turn on my camera, like I have to be super focused and do my thing.
Exactly. Yeah. If you turn the camera, you're just literally holding yourself accountable. Thank you, Corey. Just dropped $5 donation on YouTube. Damn, smash that thumbs up button for Corey, guys. Yeah. So Ethava, I couldn't agree more, dude. I 100% agree with you. And I think it's a case of like, just by being on the camera, just by like showing yourself on a camera, you're going to be pretty much like already improving your performance by at least minimal 30 to 40%, like as in minimal 30 to 40%. And then anything above that is going to pretty much, and think of it this way, if you're doing that like every time you work, you just pretty much put the camera on, right? Or like, and I know it sounds a bit extreme, right? But like the truth is just try it, guys. I promise you, just try it and don't knock it until you've tried it. Like you will see your progress go up, and it's a really sort of undermined thing, but I would really recommend it. Now,
Actually, I can also connect with that. Like,
yeah,
from the day I have started documenting my journey on the Instagram, I always feel like if I have committed to something, I don't want to be the person like who just commit to something and don't do and go back from his word.
yeah,
So for that reason, I just try to push myself each day and every day and try to complete that target, whichever I have like sold, like I'm going to do this and that,
yeah,
like that. So each day,
100%.
and what I means notice that that the work of hours and the time I focus in working have increased a lot.
Yeah, exactly,
Sonny, were
100%.
you like camera shy in the beginning?
Was that camera shy in the beginning?
Yeah.
100%, dude. 100%.
So how do you build your confidence on like getting better at camera and
Dude, this is
any tips?
Yeah, this is a really good point, actually. I'm glad you brought this up because, okay, so we might have thought that this is just about YouTube now and live streaming, right? But take this a step further, right? So being not only just camera shy, but like, let's imagine like in current circumstances, right? Like imagine a lot of jobs right now are remote positions, right? So you're going to need confidence over a camera, right? You're going to need confidence whenever you have a conversation with a client, or whether they're based in the States or something, especially if you're doing freelancing, you're going to need to get comfortable on camera to talk to clients and things like that, right? So now in the beginning, I remember when I first jumped on the camera, whether it be a live stream or YouTube, or if I was doing a vlog or something like that, I was literally the most quiet, introverted person, but I was a very extroverted person with my friends and out and about. But on camera, I was like, you know, like super quiet, and I was like, hey guys, how's it going? Like this is Sonny, like, and you know, you watch it back and you're just like, oh man. But I guarantee what happens is you watch it back and you're gonna look at it and be like, oh man, what the heck am I doing? Like this and this and this. But the second time you do it, there'll be a slight improvement, right? Then the third time you do it, there'll be a slight improvement. Then the fourth time you do it, there'll be a slight improvement. And then after a certain point, you're like, you just stop giving a shit. Like the truth is, like, you just stop caring. And the truth is, and it puts you in a position where you just, all you care about is the actual thing that you're trying to deliver. And then your real personality comes to the surface, and that is where people connect with you. Everything before that, the sort of persona you put on top of it and everything is very hard, but it's a lot easier said than done in terms of trying to, you know, like, it's very easy to say, be yourself, you know, just be yourself. It's a lot more tougher to actually go ahead and do that. But the way to get past it is do it consistently every day, every single day. And there is no way that it won't happen naturally.
And also talking about cameras and being in front of a camera, actually, when you're like being, let's say I wake up today and then I'll be like, okay, I want to go and teach.
Yeah.
So I've got a skill which I want to teach. And if we do, like you said, so every time we work, we just turn the cameras on and we just film ourselves. Even if we do a time lapse, or we don't actually post it on YouTube or on social media, we just record ourselves and that's it.
Yep.
But at least you get that confidence and that, you know, be like, okay, I've got a camera. I don't feel awkward having a camera in front of me filming.
Yep.
Because I think it's when I've done teaching in person, because I went to school and teach in schools, right?
Yeah.
And it was a thing. When then I thought maybe let's do teaching, but with like remote teaching.
Yep.
And it's totally different because you don't have that interaction, that human interaction.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like talking to nothing basically.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you know, connection errors and all of that stuff.
Exactly, 100%. There's connection errors, there's delay, there's sort of like getting over that confidence barrier. And also, guys, like, let me put this into perspective, right? Like, how many of you, like, literally raise your hand if you trust me? Yeah, do you see that, right? Like, and that's literally over, like, that's just by shooting videos. So, like, that's literally a case of, like, if you guys trust me, right, just from a video, then just think it's completely possible for each and every single one of you guys and girls to go ahead and get someone else to trust you, right? All it takes is...
So it would be kind of hard for someone to not trust you, you know, like, you've always been so open with us. And also one more thing that I would like to add to the point of your camera thing is that, see, even I am not the best speaker, right? Even I hesitate all the time. Like, English is my second language.
Yeah.
Like, my primary language is Hindi. So English is my second language, although I still try. So it's not about, like, you know, you have to be picture perfect. Some people just think that, okay, oh my goodness, some people, like, there are going to be thousands watching me. Like Sonny, or even Sonny, there are like millions of people who watch Sonny, right? But does it make a difference to him? Does it make a difference to his speaking style? It doesn't, right? It's like almost like it comes from within you. So
Yep.
it doesn't matter if the entire world is caring about you, like the amount of value, or even like just, being yourself in front of the camera, that makes the entire difference. Like it doesn't matter if you hesitate. It doesn't matter if you're not the best person to speak, who knows how to speak. But the thing is that you just need to put yourself in a position that yes, okay, I'll at least try.
Yep.
Okay, it's not about like practicing is something that's good, but at least giving it a shot is something that I would highly recommend doing for anyone.
Yeah, 100%. And guys, let me put it to you this way, yeah. I remember when I first went on my first stream, it was not even like this many people in the Zoom chat right now, and let alone 300 people on YouTube watching as well, right? Like I remember it was literally, I think it was 60 people, right? And this was a hyped up call, right? This was a really hyped up call, and I was sweating, I was freaking out, my heart was racing. I'll try and find the message where I literally sent to Kazi. I was like, dude, I'm bricking it. I think like maybe can you come on? And Kazi was like, I can't come on this one. He was like, you've got this. Don't worry, just jump on. I remember I just literally turned the camera on. And I was like, what's up, guys? Let's go. And the next thing you know, like that endorphin, that adrenaline rush kind of kicked in, and I was like, okay, like I'm live now.
Seriously, it just
I have to go with it.
Heart. Like when you just see yourself, when you just put yourself in the position of like where like Sonny did, and then it just comes from within you. It doesn't even you just start like adrenaline rush. Okay, it's nothing about how much you're doing or like the accent that you're speaking in. It's just about the happiness that you get from within. Like so many people think about it this way. Okay, earlier no one used to see you. Nowadays everyone's seeing you. Think about yourself to be a position like a superstar or something. Okay, because so many people are now watching you.
Yeah,
it's kind of good for you too. If you put it in that perspective, it's going to be easier for you.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
Comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah, literally and I said that in one call actually, is get super comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Like as in get used to putting yourself, and if you're not feeling uncomfortable day to day, right, then you're not doing enough, period, right? Like I have two people on the call right now who I really want to bring up because like literally like both of them absolutely amazing students, and I coach both of them, and they're both on the call right now. And both have actually done some awesome stuff recently, and I'd love to talk about it. Before I do that, I literally just want to go ahead and jump on because I know they joined in afterwards. I'll name drop it once when I'm about to bring them on. But basically, for those of you who had jumped in afterwards, we were talking about the ways to make money with code, right? So the first was teaching and coaching, second was freelancing, and the third naturally would be the job, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say just like let's go and say land a job, right? So and then we'll dive into this afterwards, but pretty much these are three things which we're going to sort of talk about. And then the main things are teaching and coaching can start from the get-go, from the beginning, right? Freelancing, you can pretty much go ahead and start at this point or even earlier if you pretty much go ahead and push for it. And then literally after the third month, so I'd say both of these would be the freelancing months that you could start and do that. And remember, this is overlapping, so this would go ahead and you can still teach at this point. But after the third month, you can pretty much go ahead and apply for a job. And even before that, if you've got the confidence, go for it, I would say, right? But there's two people I really, really want to highlight, and that is my awesome students, and that's Corey and Patch, right? So I'm going to go ahead and bring you guys on. I'm going to spotlight right now. And both of you guys are doing awesome stuff, man. And I want to pretty much go ahead and talk about that. So firstly, you guys are spotlighted right now. So you got they got the cameras on you, man.
All right, let me shake it off.
There we go.
Awesome.
There we go.
Right, so guys, firstly,
what's going on?
Exactly. Yeah, man. Literally, so Patch, already we spoke about, Priyanshu actually mentioned that he jumped on a call with you and pretty much.
Patch.
Yeah, what's up, man? How you doing?
Amazing.
Good.
And he
Corey,
pretty
what's
much,
going on, brother?
Hey, and we got Joe, yeah. We were talking about how you went from a friend who just was interested in coding and turned that into a client yourself. So do you want to explain to pretty much everyone where the initial sort of like where the initial sort of motivation to do that came from, and also like what made you like believe in yourself to take that step in terms of right, I can teach him, like, you know, like as in I'm even though like I'm relatively sort of new in this space, but I can do this. Like what took you to that?
Yeah. Well, he was like me. It's a buddy that I've known for a couple years, so you know I gotta throw that in there first because it was kind of like a little easier to get him as a client as a result of that. But you know, ultimately he's a straight up dude. He would have said, you know, I don't know if he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a buddy of mine who was a bartender who lost his job due to the coronavirus. And he was like, dude, I sold life insurance for a month and I felt like I was going to blow my head off. And I was like, I need something that's not so soul sucking. And I was like, dude, I've been learning computer programming and kind of getting into that world. Like, you know, if it's something you're interested in. And I was like, and he was like, yeah, sounds good. What are the classes like? And I was like, dude, just give me a call.
Yeah.
So I hopped on a call with him and just talked about it. I told him, you know, he's a musician too. So I was telling Priyanshu yesterday, I think, or the day before, whenever we chatted, I don't remember.
Day before it was.
All these days.
It was an amazing call.
Yeah, it was cool. But I told him that I really enjoy the creative element of it. Like, that's kind of what I've been really enjoying most about coding. And that's kind of what makes me like amped to get up every day and to do it.
Yeah.
So I told him, you know, dude, you can work from home, you can do this, you can do that. But ultimately, you know, you can't just do it for the money. You got to enjoy it. So you being a creative person, I feel like you would really latch on to the creative element and be able to make some cool shit and you know, just have a lot of fun with it, just playing around and stuff like that. And, you know, he's super new, knows nothing. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, that would be a good place for me to sort of like brush up on, you know, because I'm only 4 months in, but, you know, I've put probably, you know, maybe about 300 hours into my learning.
Yeah.
And so I felt really good. And I built a ton of web pages. You know, I'm working on the Amazon clone, you know, like I'm constantly practicing and stuff. So I was like, I could definitely get something going. So what I did was I made a PowerPoint presentation for him. Of kind of like, you know, HTML, CSS basics.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to make a 10-page PowerPoint and we're going to hop on a call and I'm going to just take him through this little presentation and break stuff down for him. And even, you know, I pulled up my VS Code and I was like, you know, here's how it looks. And so, you know, did examples and stuff like that. And then, that was easily, you know, an hour and a half long call. And
nice.
And I gave to your point that you made on your little picture, Sonny, I was like, dude, first call will be free. So I'll just give you sort of like, you know, a foot in the door to the whole like idea of it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, because if you don't like it and you're like, you know, at the end of it, I don't know if I really want to do this. Seems like a lot of work. I don't know if I'd be into it. You didn't waste any money. But at least now you know. So it was like, you know, if I can offer that to you, you know, I'm happy to do so. And then at the end of the call, he was so stoked and amped and jazzed about it that he wants to do like 5 lessons a week.
That's insane, dude.
$20 an hour.
That is insane.
So I'm like, dude, fuck unemployment. I don't need that shit now. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's just a cool, like, because again, you know, one way to get better at your skills is to coach and teach. So you kind of like reaffirm it in your own head.
100%.
Stuff like that. So that's why I was like, dude, I think teaching would be a great way for me to sort of like supplement my learning and not supplement it, but, you know, in addition to, and just a way for me to like, and I already got a call from another buddy that is interested. So it's just
amazing.
Like, you know, word travels fast. And to go back really quick to your other point about the camera is, you know, obviously since I do the acting thing, that's one of the things that they teach you, because a lot of people can be the best actor in the world when the camera's not on them. But once the camera's on them and you got 30 crew members all staring at you, each shot costs like $50,000. So if you fuck it up, you just cost the production $50,000. So it's just like, they're like, all the managers and agents are like, you better get comfortable on camera. So I think that's definitely something to practice is like, I think like $20 on Amazon, you can get a tripod. Everybody's got a phone. Just set it up on the tripod and film yourself and just like do a little presentation and go back and watch it. And, you know, it's, you know, it's just like programming, man. You just got to practice. And before you know it, stuff starts to click and you start to get better. And you're like, all right, you go from going, I'm really nervous. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to talk about to, all right, what do we talk about today? All right, let's see here. What can we, you know, and you just like, you grow into it. So
exactly. And to add to that, I remember when we did the challenge, Patch submitted his sort of his challenge in, and he gave a video with it. And I remember me and Kazi were sort of looking through it and we're kind of watching stuff through and just having a chat. And then we were watching it through and like everyone was submitting very sort of like rough videos and stuff like that. And it was barely showing their face or anything. And then Patch literally had the laptop next to him. and I think it was right. It was the laptop next to you, and you were literally like kind of standing next to it, and you had a backdrop, and you were just literally talking to the camera, and you're like, "This is what I built." And like I remember me and Cos were like, "Holy shit! Like this is like this," and that stuck with us, and it really moved fast because after that point, we knew who Patch was. Right. So like literally we had watched all these other videos, but we just watched one video where he took a little bit more effort in doing it, put himself in that position of just like, like this is a new space. I don't feel like 100% comfortable, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit to it. I'm going to do it. And then literally as soon as we knew who Patch was after that video, we're like, okay, that's that guy. Like, and we knew exactly who he was. And that's like the difference between building an effective network versus somebody who's like got 1,000 people on LinkedIn and nobody knows who he is. Right, or she is, right? So there's a big difference there. Now, and amazing stuff, by the way, Patch. So like, Corey, I want to move to you now. Like, Corey, you've literally like kind of like shifted even my mindset in terms of like, and sort of like the way you think and sort of the way you keep you grounded and when you're sort of learning. What would you say has been your like top 3 tips in terms of like pushing your sort of learning in the space, and like how do you sort of balance like work and life with your sort of progress?
You're coming heavy hitting right now. Thank you for the kind words. Wow, I would say maybe top 3 tips. Find someone who has what you want and go ask them how they got it.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right. There's a little saying that says like, if you want what we have, do what we do. And it's really simple in the sense that like, I'm literally going to copy exactly what you say in the React build and then have a React product, right? And so the same holds true in other areas of our life. If you need to know more about marketing, go find someone who's good at marketing and ask them, how do I do this?
100%.
So I think kind of that in conjunction with finding yourself a mentor. All the best people in the world have coaches. We don't do this alone, right? Like our diversity is our strength, and like unity is huge, right? We need other people. So I think the biggest thing is kind of exactly find someone who, and maybe it's not technical, right? Maybe, being a developer isn't solely just about, oh, I can code the best code in the world. Because if you're hard to get along with, if you don't cooperate well, if you have trouble, right? If you have trouble communicating, that might work really well for a lot of people. But I will say that you will go so much farther if you have some of those kind of soft skills, right?
100%.
So maybe what you're attracted to isn't like the hard stuff, like, oh man, he's like a guru at this, but like maybe it's just like how he's able to connect with people. Because this is all relationships, right? And we see this in the PWJ community. Within CP, network is huge. And I'll tell you, like, I really don't, I don't know. I don't really like being I like being behind the scenes. I like being where no one can see me working and making sure that I hold everybody else up. Like that's where I like to be. And some people are like front and center. They like the spotlight, not me, right? I don't mind coming out into it, but I really like being on the back where no one really knows who's doing that. But like you're a part of something that's keeping everything going, right? And that's just for me. And so I've had people reach out to me, and I just sent off a $10,000 contract for 2 sites yesterday.
Nice,
and
dude.
like awaiting to hear back, And so, but it's like you never really know. So I guess the second thing I would say is like you never know who's watching you. Right? You never know who's got their eye on you. And so by documenting your journey, by putting yourself out on social media, by connecting with people and saying hi and putting yourself out there, even if it's scary, man, people resonate and connect with that. And that's how some of these people have come to me. Like Pat said, I think the other thing, and maybe the third most valuable thing, I think, and this is just for me personally, money is a good motive, right? We all got to eat. We need to pay our bills. But I will say that like, for me, I have found the work that I'm doing so much more fulfilling when money isn't the driver.
100%.
And like what I mean by that is helping other people and giving something to them, even if they have nothing to give me, because I want you to do well. I want you to be the best possible version of yourself. I want you to go conquer the world. And if that means I don't, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I'll give that to you. And there's not this sense of, oh, I'm holding back, or I'm going to keep a secret, or like, oh, I can't give you that. Absolutely not. Right. I want you to be better, because like so if I do whatever it is, and a lot of that has been my experience, right? Working for free. And like in turn, the return on investment for me has been like so valuable. I get so much. It's a two-way street, right? It's not like I'm unpaid. I might not get the financial, but I get so much in terms of other forms of payment, right? The learning, the practice with the process. That's huge. So like, don't mistake the practice with the process. Like, and if you can learn to fall in love with the process, you will go so much farther than if all you care about is the product.
Yeah.
Because the product is irrelevant, so I'll hop off my soapbox.
Dude, you took that and ran. That was awesome, man. Yeah, that was awesome stuff. Yeah, I would say like to literally pull the sort of like golden points from what Corey said there as well. Like, so like literally like don't focus on the monetary gain or the monetary value when you're doing this stuff, right? Like focus on like the fulfillment, right? If something fulfills like you internally and makes you happy, even if it literally just makes your day a little bit better, right? Like when Patch like helped his friend out, like, or when Corey like is literally like building his skill set, or like helping somebody bring up themselves in terms of somebody who might have been introverted and like kind of getting them out of their shell, right? Like all of those things, trust in that as being like more worth. Like it doesn't matter if someone was to turn around and say, here's $2,000, right, for like a coaching session. If you instead are able to help somebody, like say for example you have an introverted guy who's like an amazing coder but literally just lacks all the soft skills, right? Now, the problem is that, yeah, sure, they can code up the craziest websites, but the thing is nobody would end up working with them because they can't ever communicate. They can't ever like close that barrier. So there's a lot more to the space than just technical skill, right? Now, in order to like 100%. Build on that, like literally exactly like Corey said, it doesn't mean that you have to be the guy in front of the camera or the guy in the front, right? There's completely like positions to be able to go ahead and take that person who's quiet and use your skills as a person who isn't introverted and kind of has that sort of ability to talk and have that relationship building and pretty much go ahead and teach them that. And that's going to help you. Trust me when I say all of the returns will be tenfold in time. Like give it time and everything will like flood in. Like look at Gary Vee, right? When you look at Gary Vee, so like Gary Vee, literally, if you follow his Instagram, the guy drops value after value after, it's just endless like good stuff. Like, and it's literally just constant value being dropped, right? But we never see him say like, oh, like you have to go like I'm charging this much or I'm charging this or this or this. Instead now he's so valuable because he just provides so much value that if somebody wants an hour with Gary Vee, God knows how much they have to pay for that hour, right? Like as in, so as you see, like the stuff comes naturally. You just keep providing and not only your skill set going to go ahead and like and explode, but you're going to go ahead and get actually a happier life out of it. And that's why we're all here, right? It's not just to land a job. Why are we landing a job? So we can actually have a better life, right? But what's the point of focusing on something which makes us X amount of money an hour if we don't enjoy that life, right? You really want to go ahead and focus on the fulfillment. And then once you focus on the fulfillment and the value you can provide to somebody else, then go ahead and that will go ahead and translate to sort of some kind of gain or change in your life. And trust me, it'll be one where money is not an issue, right?
Sonny, to be honest, that was worth legit $1,500 without a doubt. Seriously, like whatever you guys just said, that was gold. And to be honest, I couldn't agree with Corey anymore. Like seriously, it doesn't matter if you guys are not like the best. Like if you can just help someone and if you find some kind of satisfaction in that, the money is not even a factor. To be honest, it just doesn't matter.
Did who's screen sharing?
It's not me.
Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and stop that. Yeah, nice.
If I could add on to that point again, like when you're talking about It's not about your credentials. It's not about if you're the best coder in the world, because again, I hate talking about this because it makes me feel like I'm like boasting, but as an actor, when you go into an audition,
yeah,
the casting director doesn't care if you're a good actor, if you're an asshole. They want to trust that the person that they're sending to set to potentially spend 6 months with everybody else, they want to trust that that person's not going to drive everyone else crazy.
Yeah.
So there's always somebody, if you look at it this way, there's always somebody better. There's always somebody more qualified, but that's not what anyone cares about anymore. People care about who you are as a person. And if you're a good person, and like, if Sonny was a dick, then he'd have 3 participants, not 86. You know what I'm saying? Like the fact that Sonny's such a nice person, so open and so willing to help everybody. And like you said, I'm pretty damn sure everybody put their hand up when he asked if we trusted him, because I sure as hell do. And that's because he's shown that he can be trusted and all this stuff. So I feel like it's more about that.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said, you could talk to anybody in this group right now. Everybody's down to help everybody else. You know what I'm saying? There's no dickheads in here.
I can add on to you, Patch, too.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. You know, like I don't know how many people watching have experienced this after a call, right? Where your energy is pumped, you feel super stoked, and then like a day goes by and down you go, right? You feel like your wheels are spinning and you don't know, where do I put this momentum? You know, what direction do I go? I don't know how to keep that natural flow of content, right? How do we do that? And the best advice I've ever gotten, like our true value is in being ourselves.
Yeah.
Don't try to be Sonny, because Sonny's Sonny.
Yeah,
right?
I couldn't agree more.
Don't try to be Patch, because Patch is Patch. Like, be who you are.
Yeah.
Because that's the most valuable, right? Like, really, for real. And like, you know, you don't have to be anything more or less than who you are. Put that out there. Like, that's who people want to get to know. Because let me tell you what happens if you don't. And you put some fake shit out there, as soon as people find out, and really you're stuck with feeling that, like, at the end of the day, when you step away from the performance side of it, that you're not connected with yourself, right? And all of that will come collapsing down, and you'll ultimately return to who you are anyway. So just stay with that at the beginning, and then you don't have to change, right? You don't have to try to do something different. So I think that's a really easy way to keep stuff very naturally occurring, is like, just enjoy who you are, man, and like have fun with the process. And I guarantee, like, instead of looking outside yourself for something to be or someone else to be, if you feel like you're spinning the wheels, like, step into yourself, man. You know, like, let me say, like, you have been waiting for you, and the you later on, that person depends on you and needs you right now. And if you don't show up for that person right now, who the fuck is going to?
That's powerful, dude. That's so
you know what
powerful.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
For real.
Honestly, the biggest takeaway from that is that do not try to be someone who you are not. Like, do not try, like, if you are not like an extroverting person, do not worry about it. To be honest, like, Sonny might not have been an extroverted person, and if you're trying to live someone else's life, no one is gonna, like, you're not living yours, so it's kind of pointless to live a life too.
Yeah, 100%. And literally, guys, think of it this way, right? Like, we're always scared. Like, imagine when you kind of like think of you want to start a company, right? The first thing we kind of think of is like, no, I have this like gem, right? And somebody's going to steal my gem, right? Like, as in, like, I have the next Facebook, somebody's going to steal my Facebook, right? And we always kind of have this mindset of like, no, it's mine. Like, I don't want to share this thing, right? Like, now think of it this way, right? So firstly, if you're ever doing that, that's the worst thing you could do. Trust me, I spoke to so many CEOs now, and every single one of them said, like, if I could start from the beginning, I would tell everyone my secrets. I would tell everyone my idea from the get-go, because it's only going to help me get there faster, right? Now, also, when you do what Corey said and you just be yourself, nobody can steal you because you're you, right? I can't be Patch, because Patch is Patch. I can't be Corey because Corey's Corey. And that's what makes them special, right? Like, if everyone kind of like tries to mirror the person that they want to become like, right, which is great for acquiring skill, motivation, that sort of stuff. But like like Corey said, it's going to get to a point where like it becomes so hard and you're kind of like trapped in a shell that like, trust me. And this is why I said like, literally like, if it's a kind of an extreme way of doing it, but if you show up every day in an uncomfortable situation, for me, it was putting myself on camera every day, right? Like putting yourself out there every single day. It does, like they've reached a point where I was like, fuck it, I can't do it anymore. I can't put this fake stuff on. I have to be myself because it's just too like intense. Like I just like, and you build up this internal excitement and trust me, it'll just pop. And it's like, right now I'm myself on camera, you know? And that is where really the trust comes. Because like, even when you're trying to land a client, like all the client meeting is, right, it's not literally you sitting there saying, I can code in React, I know Firebase, I can do Redux, I know data layer stuff, like all this stuff. None of it is that, right? It's actually just building trust between you and the client in that conversation. That's all it is. Once you have trust, the salary, the money, everything else is secondary. But the trust is the first. If you don't have trust, don't even bother talking about money with that person. Or anything like that.
Money is basically, again, like you guys said, right? That money is basically a lagging indication of who you are and what are your skills. So, like, not just your technical skills, but also your soft skills. So, if you guys don't focus enough on your soft skills, basically, it's not going to be anything related to money. Like, you can be the best coder, again, like Corey said, you can be the best coder, but it doesn't matter if you can't speak in front of someone else, right? So if I couldn't speak in front of Sonny right now, like on the day when I actually got on a call with him, trust me, I don't think that I would have been over here. I'm sure I wouldn't have been over here. So
literally, and that took Priyanshu to stepping out of his comfort zone. And I remember, and this is like something which both you and Corey did actually. So I remember both of you sent like meaningful messages when you did something. I can't actually remember how me and Patch started talking. I think I can't.
I just think like I joined a bunch of your calls and then I was just like, fuck, I wanna get better, so I'm gonna reach out to.
Yeah, I think it was like that. Yeah, but literally, I remember like Corey sent me a message which was super polite. It was like a very polite message. It was like, I hope you're having a great day, full of positivity, and it was literally a case of like I want to take myself to the next level and just putting himself out there, right? And I read it, and this is the crazy part, right? I get hundreds of messages now. Like I literally can't find messages from my girlfriend on Instagram now. So I'm like, don't send me messages on Instagram, because like they get buried, right? So like, and then she's like, you didn't reply, and I'm like, just don't do it. But yeah, and then literally like it got to a point where like, but then those messages just find a way through. Like I'm telling you, because I read that message and I was like, damn man, like I really want to, I want to jump on a call with this guy. And I remember same with Priyanshu, like I was on a live stream. I had no idea of his age. I had no idea of anything. All I knew is that everyone was spamming comments saying like, it was like, oh yeah, like I want to jump on the call. Like, let me jump in the call. Let me jump in. And then I remember Priyanshu wrote a really nice message and it was like, hey Sonny, like I would really love to jump in the call. I can't remember the exact words, but it was like quite a hefty, it was like quite a message. And I was like, dude, like if he's wrote this, like I'm bringing that guy on the call. Like, and then
so guys, one more thing I would like to tell that I am not, if you guys think of me on camera and if you guys think of me in real life, there's actually like in school when I used to be in school, people never even used to like see me, okay? And even I didn't like to approach people themselves, okay? And then this was a huge step for me too, because I'm not that kind of a person who is good with people. I always say that because from my early ages, I was like really into books and stuff and always like I was like the nerdy guy, as people call it, okay?
Yeah.
So although it didn't matter for me because I was like, okay, now this is something that I know and I would like to share it with the community. And that was the reason why Sonny actually brought me on the call. He told me that, okay, this guy's actually providing some value. Let me bring him on the call, okay? And the moment he brought me on the call, trust me, I'm going to tell this to you, Sonny, that I was actually typing one more message back then. And if I didn't hit that blue button back then, I could have hit the cancel button. I could have done that. Yeah, that would have been scary,
Yeah.
But I hit the blue button just by a mistake. And then I was all panicking, like, what the hell did I do just now? And why am I on the live stream? The next thing I know, the momentum just took me up. Like, I didn't care. I thought of Sonny to be a person who is like a god. Is he basically a god? But the thing is that he was not someone from whom I was scared of, because I thought there was some kind of similarity between us. He was also a coder, I was also a coder. And in my school, to be honest, like I do not find anyone else like me, because they're all there's a group that I call the popular group. Okay, like they're all super popular in the entire school, and I'm that guy who just sits back and he does his homework, and he's not that good with teachers and stuff too.
Yeah.
But then too, it didn't matter to me because I just tried to take a step further. Okay, I just tried that. Okay, what's the worst that can happen? I thought of that. Okay, what's the worst that can happen? Maybe some people might not like it, and they'll just be like, okay, dude, this might have been wrong. Like even with some things that happen on a day-to-day basis, sometimes it happens that you're wrong. Okay, don't be afraid to be wrong.
Exactly.
And
like main thing, literally the main thing is like, don't be afraid to be wrong. Don't be afraid to, like put yourself in those uncomfortable positions. And the one thing is that like, if you take positivity, guys, like into any situation, I guarantee the outcome is going to be positive for you. Yeah, like it's because if you go into a room full of negative people, but you're just that one person who is positive, it's contagious, right? Like it will change like everything, and it will become like something which is like you will shift people's mindset. Just like if you walk into a room full of happy people and you're like super negative, you're gonna kind of flip the dynamic in that room, right? So that's pretty much how we started talking, and that's pretty much how it blew up, and that's why literally Priyanshu is on the call right now today. So with that said, guys, Priyanshu, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into some of the React stuff now, so that way we can go ahead and like get everyone involved in it and things like that. But otherwise, like guys, I just want to say a massive thank you to Priyanshu, because he dropped some crazy value bombs, to Patch, and well done Patch for the client. You landed awesome stuff. And Corey, literally straight fire, man. Like you in the beginning you were like, I'm nervous, but you ran with that and absolutely crushed it. So you guys are awesome. We're going to go ahead and jump into the React basic stuff right now. And today we're going to be talking pretty much about everything involved with like what you need to learn, what you need to go ahead and do to get started with React, and some of the top things which I consider as key points, right? So key points that you're going to need to go ahead and cover, and how I imagine, like if I was to start from the beginning right now, what approach would I take? Right. And this is sort of like from things I've learned, from things I wish I kind of knew before, and all of those things. Right. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that now. So what I would say is, let me go ahead and share my screen. Right. So we already talked about all of this stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and clear that now. But the first thing I'll do is pretty much for those of you guys who aren't familiar with how we actually go ahead and start React apps. Don't build them from scratch, right? I know like people say, yeah, but it will be useful, it will be handy. Like don't do that. The reason why I say don't do that is because honestly, truthfully, I've never had to do it. That's the truth. Like in all the time I've been coding, I've never had to go ahead and build something like that from scratch. So until you need to do that, don't do that, right? My approach would be use Create React App. So Create React App is what we use in every single build. It's the easy way that I would sort of recommend every single person go ahead and do, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to say is also I don't have the chat here, guys, so I can't actually see. Oh, now I have the chat. Yeah, so I can see the
if
chat.
If you manually do React, it is going to waste your time. And if you do not make it, it's like
exactly
you mess up a single thing and it won't work.
Exactly.
It's like the worst feeling ever. You tried so hard and then also you failed. So why not just take the easy way?
Yeah, literally just take the easier route, because the truth is like, as they said, like you're going to pretty much stuck on things which a tool would get perfect every time, right? And the benefit of using this tool as well, Create React App, is where is it? Create React is that it also gives you like the latest and greatest things when you're using React and things like that, because they always upgrade stuff, they always change things. Also, if you haven't seen, like I'd recommend watching the previous coaching calls. You can pretty much use special options with this to go ahead and set the app up with Redux, with all sorts of other stuff, which if you've never used Redux before, it takes ages to go ahead and set that up typically. It's a very painful sort of process to go ahead and do that. So in this case, we're just going to copy this. And I'm going to go ahead and dive into it. And I'm going to do it in a very practical way today. So we're actually going to go ahead and literally just do stuff. And I'll show you that way, as opposed to sort of listing it out and drawing. So it should be fun to watch as well. So I'm going to open up a terminal. Give me 1 sec. Also, the crowd on YouTube today is actually crazy. So thank you guys for watching. We have 260 people across YouTube and Facebook. If you're enjoying it, smash the thumbs up button, guys. And get the video out to loads of people. But let me go ahead and pull this up right here. So we've got the terminal over here. And just a little top tip for you guys. If you guys haven't got you see my terminal might look different. You might have that kind of annoying squiggly crap in the beginning, and then it's like takes up half the terminal, and then you get to your command, right? I would recommend that everyone goes ahead and downloads this if you've got Mac. I'm not sure what the Windows alternative but like this is what you want to get if you've got a Linux subsystem or Mac, right? So it's called OMI-ZSH, and I recommend that everyone goes ahead and grabs that when you get a chance, right? The installation instructions are on this page, and it's super easy. You pretty much just copy this into your terminal, and it will install it for you. Now, the reason is it's really handy when you're doing a lot of like development stuff. But I'm going to go into my desktop, go into Clever Programmer, and then I'm going to do that command, right? So I'm going to paste in that command. So I'm going to go here, create React app, paste it in, and then we got create React app, my app. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this one, let's just say coaching call. Let's just say React Basics. React Basics. Right? Boom. Also, Alexandros Tuition, I always see you comment, dude, and I always see like plus in front of your messages. I don't know why. Is that intentional, or like it's literally for the longest time, me and Kazi was like, have you seen that guy Alexandros? He always comments and he's got a plus. None of us can figure out why there's a plus. So let me know why there's that. But yeah, so you want to pretty much go ahead and do this, and this will start up the app, right? Now, he did it again. But what I would say is while that happens, right, this will become your holy Bible. Like this is where I literally lived and breathed. I lived and breathed these documentation. Like I'm not joking when I say that. Like I literally stood here like and I was doing tutorials, and then I'd come back, and this main concepts right here. So even everyone that I do one-to-one sort of coaching with, I tell them to pretty much like just like become insane with this section. The reason being is because tutorials will teach you how to, even the clones, they teach you how to build stuff, but until you know the actual inner and outer workings of React, when you get stuck in some weird debugging situations, the difference between you reading this stuff and not reading it will make a huge difference as to why, understanding why like things aren't working in a really good, like things might be sort of rendering in a weird way, or like you might be like, yeah, but I used effect. But like if I asked everyone on this call right now, let me go ahead and actually do that as a test, right? If I asked everyone on this call right now, how many of us have used the use effect hook before? Just raise your hand.
It has confused me a lot.
Right.
Like
So
I have weird bugs. I had weird bugs, but somehow it solved, and I don't know the reason how it got solved still.
yeah, so literally, but like if you've used it, just raise your hand. So I've used it. Okay, so loads of us have used it, right? Now, again, I'm going to ask the same question now. Like, raise your hand if you could explain to me exactly how the use effect hook works or why it works that way. Okay. So, Victor, nice, dude. That's awesome. Yeah, but literally, like, there was much less hands.
I learned it from you by teaching it over and over again every build.
Yeah, so exactly. So that's the first thing, like one, pattern recognition. The repetition is going to eventually drill in a point, right? Now, combine that with, and we actually had a really good question just come through on YouTube right now as well. I'm going to just mention that in a sec by a beer, so don't worry, I will answer that. But yeah, so the use effect hook, right? So like we use it a lot, right? But then actually understanding what it does and why it works that way is crucial. And trust me when I say it, because a question just popped in here, right? Saying, hey, hello, like I have a question. Why do you always use hooks and not class components, right? So firstly, this is a question I get all the time. And to answer it very shortly is, you have two types of components in React, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and quickly take a little screen drawing session here. So you get two types of components in React. Two types of component, right? Oh man, I hate it when that happens. Freeze, undo. Oh man, what the hell? It's on the other screen, okay. Anyway, two types of components, yeah? And then what we're going to do is, we're going to say the number one is class-based component, right? So I'm just going to say class-based component. Now, if you've ever seen these or ever used them, they're kind of messy. Like the truth is, like if you've never worked with a functional, you'd think it's a normal thing, but they are kind of like messy. You have a super, you have a constructor, you have like stuff that you do in there that you might not understand why you do it. You just do it, right? Nobody wants to admit it, but that's the truth, right? The second thing is you have functional components, right? Now,
I still didn't understand this keyword till date.
Yeah.
in the class components.
I think there's millions of developers who still don't understand this keyword, so don't worry. But so there's a few differences here, right? The main one is that this was the first type of component, right? So I'm just gonna write this was the first type of component, right? So this one was around for longer, right? So I'm gonna just draw a line between them, right? This was the first type of component. It's been around for longer. What does that mean? It means that class-based components are the ones that you're most likely going to run into when you're in a production environment. Now, that's a very, very important point, right? So this is the one that is most, so this, oh God, why is it always, let me change the color of this to be a bit more bright. So there we go. So this is most likely the one you'll see in a production environment, right? And the reason why is because it's been around for longer, which means that when the company started, so imagine a company started in, let's say 2015, 2016, yeah, they would have built the initial app using whatever was available. And at the time, class-based components were available. Functional components weren't available, right? As far as I can remember, right? So, but the point is that functional components came later. So these arrived later. Right, and all these they're essentially just they're functions, right? So if you a class-based component that has like a lot of fancy stuff inside of it, which makes it work in a certain way. Functional components are literally it's imagine you have some kind of input, right? So you have some kind of input. You have the function itself. Right, so this is the component. So imagine this was like the product component. So the function itself, and then it has an output. And what is the output? It's literally the JSX or the sort of like what you see on the screen. It's literally like the product bit of HTML and JS, like JavaScript that you see that gets meshed out of it, right? But this is all the functional component is every single time. And if you've done any of the clones, this is what we use. We use functional components because it's very much like it takes some kind of input. In this case, the input would be props. So this would be your kind of props or something like that. And then the output would be the actual component itself, right? But then, yeah.
Can we use both class-based and functional-based in a single React app?
Yes, so very good question there. And that's actually something which you're going to experience, right? So you would actually experience this. And today we're going to purposefully do it, right? So I'm going to even show you that. But yes, so this actually goes into, so I actually had this come up once before, right? So I joined a company and when I joined that company, it was a huge company. So it's called Tesco and they work with, a lot of it has been written in class-based components. And as a result, there's a huge benefit to using functional components. So before we kind of move on to that next bit, I'm just going to say, these are easy to understand. Right? These are easy to understand. But the problem is that we couldn't use functional components for a very long time because they didn't support state, right? Now, there are two main concepts in React. There's state and props, right? So we will get into these afterwards, but there's two main concepts in React with state and props. Now, state is like the short-term memory of components, and props is how we customize each component so that one component is different from another component, right? So these are the two main fundamentals in React. But these were easy to understand. But the problem is that we could, as soon as we needed state, we couldn't use functional components anymore because they just didn't support it. And then the bloody guys at Facebook just changed the entire game and introduced React hooks, right? So React hooks pretty much leveled up all of our components to the point where now you can get state, but you can also get a ton of other useful things, right? And now what you can essentially do is change every single class-based component into a functional component. So you can change a class-based component into a functional component. Now you can do it the other way. You can do it this way, but you don't want to do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to ask one thing that could we have one session just talking about, some examples of converting a class-based component to a functional-based component?
We're actually going to do that right now after this. I'll show you guys.
Wow, that's going to be really fun.
Yeah, so I'll show you guys right now after this because it's a really important thing and it's one of the fundamentals of nailing that. And most people, the problem is that yes, the builds are awesome, but everything is written with the cutting edge stuff. The reality is that you're going to enter a company and they're probably going to have old code, right, which is class-based. Now, People wonder, is it worth learning functional then if the company is using class-based? Or what I've seen in a lot of cases is people don't bother changing the class-based into a functional. Now, where true value came out of this was when I actually went ahead and said to a company, I said, like, I would not only implement the feature that they wanted to build, but I would also take it a step further and be like, okay, I changed 3 files today, right? So in my pull requests, 3 files were getting changed. Right. So if you don't know what pull requests are, David and Amanth did a Git video, I think yesterday. Go ahead and check that out. And I think they cover a bit of Git. Yeah, so imagine like I submitted a change request or a pull request, and I pretty much said that, like, yeah, these are 3 files, and they pretty much allow the app to now have messaging. Right. Let's just say like I've created 3 new files or I've changed 3 class-based components to messaging. Right. Now, if somebody submitted that, right, a lot of developers are lazy. They'll be like, yeah, sure, that can go in. Awesome job. Yeah. But the developer who gets noticed by the senior developers, the developer who is forward thinking and gets sort of the difference between somebody who's going to get a 5K bonus to a 10K bonus or raise, right, is the one who goes, actually, you know what? We changed 3 files. And so this is going to provide the functionality that we need, but we've got a little bit more extra time in this sprint or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and also change these 3 class-based components to functional components, because functional components will be easier to maintain, right? So let me go ahead and, oops, oh man, what is this? Oops.
But Sonny, if there are some class-based components that we never want to touch later, like why would we even want to convert them into functional?
No, so the benefit here is, I agree. So there are going to be some components which, like, I mean, the truth is you think you're never going to touch it, but there comes a time and point where that code will get touched again. So I've touched code which has never been touched in like 2-3 years. And it's like legacy kind of like, oh man, like this, some kind
It's
of
like the danger zone.
Yeah, and the truth is that what companies do is they get contractors, right? So you pretty much have 2 types of people who work in a job. You'll get the people who are permanent, and they sort of like, you know, they take pride in working because they're going to be there for the next few years, right? So they're going to write clean code. And then you get the contractors who sort of get paid very high amounts to come in, fix problems, and sort of do stuff, and then they kind of go. Right, so contractors usually work on like 1 to 3 months. They get paid really good money, which is why people contract, but they don't really care about the state of the code after. So in a lot of companies, what you're going to see is like code which is like, whoa, how the fuck did this get past like the checks? Because they would have maybe force pushed it, or they would have like got past in some way, shape or form. But the point is that you're going to eventually touch some code which you never thought you would have had to touch, right? So the way of thinking of is, if it's going to bring, if this is a piece of code that you know has a chance of getting changed later, I would recommend just taking the extra step and changing it over to a functional component. But you have to take care when you do that, because doing that, you end up refactoring a bunch of things. And in the beginning, I got a bit overconfident with this, and I broke some stuff, and it came to bite me back later. So now I can do it very well. But when I first started off, it was kind of a tricky trait to go ahead and do. But to break down a few of these things, class-based components are more complex to maintain. So they're a bit more complicated to maintain. And also, they have something called lifecycle hooks. Lifecycle methods, sorry. Now, lifecycle methods, examples of these, and you're going to see these when you do tutorials and things like that, are pretty much, they're things like component did mount, right? You might see this. And you're also going to see another one like component will mount, right? Now, yes, what are the difference between component did mount and will mount? I still, to this day, don't fully know. All I know is that
like the tense, because there's a difference in tense, so we can kind of understand it. Like did must be in the past, and like the life cycle must be like a human life cycle, right? So it's just my understanding, like a basic, like I don't even know what I'm talking about, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the did mount must be something that happened earlier, and now we want something else to happen. So
yeah,
that's why we say the will mount.
Yeah, so
I say this in use effect language.
Yeah.
So if we have the use effect, so the regular code we have in use effect is the component will mount, and the code in return is the component did mount.
Yeah. So to actually answer that question, Firstly, let's just break it down. So the difference between these two is this one happens before the component mounts. This one happens after the component is mounted, right? But the truth is, this actually was a bad pattern, right? So Facebook realized afterwards this was a bad pattern. It was causing a lot of people to break their code. And there was another one called component should update. And then there was like another one, which was component get derived state from props, which, yes, what the hell does that mean? Like, it's kind of weird in itself. The truth is, I've used all of them. I do know what they mean, but the reality is the namings are terrible, right? And the truth is that like all of these methods, Facebook, like the guys over at Facebook realize that they're just shit. Like, as in they're not like easy maintainable. Like they work, but they're just like, they're kind of messy. So in functional components, you have one. Right, you have one ultra powerful thing, and it's just called the use effect, right? And once you learn how to use the use effect well, the use effect pretty much replaces every single lifecycle hook. So to answer your question, Athava, it doesn't just replace the component did mount, it replaces every single one. Yeah. So component did mount, component will mount, component should update, all the lifecycle methods, it goes ahead and replaces it with a use effect. And you might be wondering, but how, right? But trust me, when you dive into the use effect, and this takes me back to the documentation. So remember, we were looking at the use effect documents over here. So like accepts a function and blah, 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 like it goes through. The point is that, look, if you actually read into this, I'm not going to kind of read over this right now because I want to just get into some coding and show you this stuff in practice. But it has things like a cleanup function. So for the longest time, I had been using use effects and I did not know that you could do cleanup, right? And now cleanup is basically where you could run a piece of code when the component mounts or the component sort of loads. That's what the use effect is good for. And then it can refire when you have like a dependency change or something like that. But there was also a case of like where you need to, like, for example, let's say we start listening to a database or something like that when the component loads, right? But as soon as a change happens, I needed to detach the listener before a new one got attached, right? Now, I know that might seem a bit complicated if you don't know the context or anything like that, but the point is we needed some kind of way to do that. And previously, what you had was component did unmount, right? So imagine like you had this before, right? Did unmount. And then basically imagine like you had some code, you went to a company, they had like in the component did mount, they were like, right, attach a database listener. And then in component did unmount, they had like, right, detach the database listener. Then you go over to a functional component, you're like, wait a sec, like I know how to fire code when my component mounts, but how the hell do I do it when I unmount, right? And then I remember I was sitting there, I was thinking, wait, shit, maybe I can't do that in a functional component. And then I went back to the documentation and I realized, I was like, oh my God, you can do it. And I remember as soon as I saw this, I literally ran to work the next day and I was like, guys, did you know that you can clean up from a use effect? And everyone was like, you can clean up from a use effect? and the truth is, the funny part is the senior developers was like, what's the functional component? And I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is like mind blowing. so the truth is, it's like, yeah, even the senior developers don't always stay ahead of the curve because they're comfortable with what they're doing and they've been doing it for so long and making money off it that, like, for good reason. But the truth is, staying ahead of the curve pays well. So always try and stay ahead of the curve, right? Somebody was.
Sonny,
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, you said that you get a lot of value when you convert class-based components to functional-based when you are working, like when you're really working. But is it like I started React when there was functional components, so I just started right away with functional. So do you think it would be good for me to just learn the class-based components one, like a little part of it?
So I would say very good question, firstly, Atharva. So to answer your question, the question is, guys, so he's obviously started coding since React functional components have existed, so now he can use them. So should he go ahead and do class-based components or should he not? Or like what's the optimal route through that position? So what I would say is in this position, right, start coding, like build clones and stuff like that with functional components, because you get tangible output, right? You get things which is, it's fun, it's going to work well, it's going to do what you need it to do, and it's going to be scalable, maintainable, all that stuff. And it also allows you to get a grasp of React in a fun way, right? You're not going to get the headache of class-based components and stuff like that. But when you reach a certain point where you basically start wanting to take it to that next level, you're like, I've done like so many builds now. You know, I've kind of mastered this main concept section. I played around with hooks. I feel like I'm comfortable. The next step I would say is now start writing the same components that you've done with class-based methods and start converting them methods to class-based. And you might be thinking that's a horrible thing to do. Why would I do that? Because trust me, it will pay off. Like if you go into a company and you're able to understand class-based components as the junior guy, right? So you can pretty much do all your class-based work and all that and that, which is kind of expected, right? So if you go into a company, they're going to expect you to know how to do class-based components, right? But then if you're a master at functional components and you know all the cutting-edge new shit, they're going to be like, oh man, that's a really good suggestion. Because most of the people in that team will be making improvements or building on the app currently in a class-based mindset. Trust me when I say that. Every single place I went and worked in, all of them were working with a class-based mindset because hooks, functional components were quite new at the time. And still at this point, you get a lot of people who are still stuck in the class-based mindset. So I would say it's going to be my optimal route to getting to that point, Athava, would be to do it with functional components first. So you enjoy the process, you get good at it, you have tangible output. So you have something on your portfolio, and then kind of reverse engineer it and kind of like flip it and start doing class-based components. That way you have fun and it'll be a lot easier to transition as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That would be great.
adding one more point onto that, I recently had an interview with a company which called for a React developer, and the first thing that they asked is, since you learned it quite recently, so do you know about class components? And I was fortunate enough to know about that at that time, so I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I know, and that was important as for that time.
Yeah, exactly. So it is going to be
Sonny.
an important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, my input here is that everyone should like learn class-based component also. That is because like at some point of time you you will face that okay, you are importing or you are using some like predefined something like a calendar from any of like pre-built calendar on your website.
Yeah.
So but all the features what do you want are not available on that, and that calendar is in like class-based component.
Yeah.
So when you have to implement it, you should know that okay, where I will change it, where I have to like modify that one. But you don't know that okay, because of the class-based component, you cannot edit it. Okay.
That's
now
genius.
there are two
Yeah.
ways. Either you can edit it or you make it by your own in the functional component. So by converting that also in the functional component, you should know that okay, how a class-based component work.
Yeah.
So that will help you. So you should learn both for your understanding.
Yep.
So because like if you are joining a company and they give you a project and that is totally on the class-based component and they want you to add some feature in that, and if you don't know that class-based component, you cannot even convert that into the functional component.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand it that okay, how this process is working, and that is not a big difference. When if you know the process,
Yep.
you will understand it very well.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is that okay, when I worked on the React Native, I faced these things because when I importing like so many of the like npx, this one, and all are in the class-based component, I jumped into a node modules and then jumped into that okay, what is defined in that one, then I change all in the functional components. So
Yep.
that helped me a lot.
Yeah.
So
Lali,
my
that's
recommendation is to use both.
That's a really, really good point. As in, and guys, like I really like. I'm gonna repeat what he said. If you didn't catch it properly, but literally, Lali, like that's actually a point that I would have completely missed, which is actually a golden point. Like a lot of modules that you go ahead and pull in, right? Like, cause in and most of them, like let's go ahead and show them an example of this, right? So whether it's like code that you're gonna reuse or something like that, or whether it's a mod, for example, we've all seen React Flip Move is something I've used in a few of the builds, and it's basically a way of introducing animation into your builds, right? But for example, this is an awesome package, right? Because it adds animation to your app. But the point is that like this one, you're fortunate enough here to get a section about how to use it with functional components, right? But previously, I don't know if they've updated it now, so they've actually got rid of the class-based section, right? But the point is that before, they didn't actually have, all they had was the class-based implementation for this, right? So you can see they've actually kept ahead of the curve and they've got rid of the class-based stuff now. But what you would see is like, say for example, let's go ahead and just try React useful libraries. Let's just try and find something that we can pretty much go ahead and let's go ahead and see if this one maybe awesome React components. Because the point is that a lot of this stuff might be, so let's go ahead and see like this random library over here. Okay. Oh, let me just try this one. But you see, this is actually a really good package, guys. This has got loads of shit going on. Okay, again, they're using React Functional Component. So if you see, like they're all moving towards React Functional Component, but I guarantee you guys, it happens all the time. I run into an example where it's all sort of class-based components. This is like a really nasty class-based component. No, they've used like a really old school way of doing it. But the point is they have a render here. Oh my God, they're using variables as well. Okay, just run for the stars if you see that. but the point is that you're going to run into cases where they're going to have here. Perfect. Okay. So they have like a class-based component, right? Now, obviously they don't have, and they still, if you ever see mix-ins are no longer used. So it's just something to know, right? So mix-ins was something which they tried and tested. They didn't like it. They got rid of it. Also, this syntax right here that you might see, that was also something which was tried and tested, didn't really catch on, and they kind of got rid of it. And this is kind of like a way of using a higher order component in case anyone's interested. But the point,
understand a single thing from this code.
Yeah, so that's the point, right? Like, so that this goes on to add on to what Lalit said earlier. So you're gonna find plenty of cases where you need this code, right? So imagine like we needed the code that they had here, right? So like rather than building an entire React sortable element, or for example like a date picker, right? This code right here was built by someone and it could have such a good reputation. So it could have like a ton of stars and all sorts of stuff. So in this case, this has got 456 stars. So it's okay. But if we wanted to use this and it's class-based, we need to know how to refactor this into a functional component so that way we can use it. Sure, we could use it as a class-based component inside of our app, but it's not a good practice. If you've got a perfectly nicely written functional component app, and then this is written in class-based components, kind of gets messy, right? So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that thing that we built earlier.
Sonny,
So yeah.
To be honest, even 1 star on GitHub is worth a lot. You don't get stars on GitHub easily.
Don't assume that, because honestly, when you're looking, especially when you're trying to pull in code, try and make sure that it's got a decent backing behind it. For example,
No, like I'm talking about, see that if I launch a library today, that if I get even 1 star, then I'm gonna be happy. But if I'm going for some library, then I'm always gonna be like, okay, 1,000 stars minimum.
Yeah, exactly. Like, as in, like, this is because I would always sort of like, yeah, no, it's true. Like, if you're gonna push your own library, then of course it's gonna take time to get traction. But this is like, this is called open source sort of contributions as well, by the way. Like, you can go ahead and say you're using this library and you realize that you can improve it. You can go ahead and push code to it, and then you're part of the community in that way. So you're contributing to open source work. Like,
I made something in PHP and it got 1 star after a few days, and I was like, it made my day.
Nice, dude. Nice.
Yeah, it does make my day. Like, whenever I'm getting a new follower on GitHub, to be honest, it's like the best feeling ever.
Yeah, nice. Like, I remember
Medium.
I literally started so quick story for you guys. I literally started a company in 2016, like, and we sort of tried to do like a food ordering, drink ordering thing, like table service app. And we built everything and we done it all. And I remember, like, we got to a point where it was we were implementing the payment processing part. And I remember I was adding the code, and it was Stripe. I was adding the code in Stripe. It was like a few years back when Stripe was sort of like, it was good, but still needed to sort of iron out bugs. And they didn't have something, and I was sure that I was implementing it correctly, and they didn't have support for something. So I went ahead and built the support for it, and then I submitted a pull request, and it blew my mind when it got accepted. And to this day, I get like pull requests from Stripe. So I can actually go ahead and approve and deny pull requests from Stripe. So Stripe is what we use for the Amazon build. It's a hugely used platform, payment processing platform.
Seriously, like getting a pull request from Stripe accepted, dude, that's huge.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. But the truth is it wasn't a big deal to get it pushed in. So it's actually much easier to go ahead and contribute to libraries than we think. Right, so literally just go ahead and like if you're interested, you can tinker with these libraries and you can get involved in it. Now, before we kind of go too far, what was that?
Even getting followers on Medium, like that's super difficult. And then the first blog just released on Clever Programming, and I just got like 135 followers now by just one blog.
Yeah,
That
like
just blew my mind.
Exactly.
Right now, I just like right now I got a mail from Medium telling that I have 34 new followers. Dude, that's insane.
Yeah. Like guys, we're not going to go into followers and stuff like that just yet, but the main thing to take away from it is stars is going to help you sort of determine if something is kind of, reliable or not. Like if it has like 2 stars, I wouldn't really trust putting it in your app. Like if it has like 1,500 stars, then yeah, it's a lot more. If it has like 1,000,000 stars, then hell yeah, like go grab the thing. I would just literally grab it in and be like, yeah, let me try this because it might make my app better in some way because like 1.5 million people use it anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this open in our code right now.
Yes, Sonny, just one quick question about classes and functional based components.
Yeah.
So is there any marginal performance based increment when we are using functional as compared to same code written in class?
Yeah, so functional is more lightweight. Functional is literally just going to be input something, output. Class-based is a lot more stuff happening that we don't see. And also, when you only have one hook, for example, the use effect hook, right? We can much more use it correctly as opposed to like you might, in order to get the same level of efficiency in for example, like in a class-based component, you would need to use all of these correctly, right? Right? You would need to use them all correctly. But if we use one use effect hook correctly, it's going to be it's going to be much more efficient. So do you see, like we might use this, but we might forget to do the cleanup process. But whereas in component did unmount, whereas in the use effect, because you're writing the use effect, it's kind of like, do I need a cleanup process? It's very intuitive. It's very kind of like you're writing the block of code that you would naturally think to maybe do the cleanup in that block of code, as opposed to, oh, I did component did mount, now I need to do component did unmount. It's kind of like I know it may seem like you would see it every time, but trust me, it gets to points where, especially when you've got like a product owner or somebody behind you saying, we need this feature in by tomorrow, it can get very sort of intense. Like, and you just kind of like want to get the best practices behind your belt. So with that said, we've got the starter template here. So we're going to do our quick cleanup. We're going to delete app.test logo and setup tests. Get rid of those. Go to app.css. Go ahead and get rid of everything. Let's just make it a clean app. And I'm going to go to index.css and just quickly add a margin 0. And this gets rid of all the styling for us. So we pretty much have a clean slate to start with. And then we go here and let's just say H1 hello world, right? And then I'm going to do Command J. I like to sort of tell it, in case you don't know the keyboard shortcuts, Command J is going to pull up your terminal, npm start, goes ahead and starts the app.
You need to remove the logos.
What was that?
You need to remove the logo, Sonny, SVG.
Oh yeah, damn.
Setup tests.
Oh yeah, nice. There we go. There you go. Nice green tick. And then here we have the hello world, right? So with that said, now what we're gonna do is let's create let's call it a product, right? Let's just quickly create a product. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the product as a functional component, as we all know and love. And then I'm going to write the product as a class-based component and show you the differences. And we're going to go through all of that together, right? So product right here. And the product is going to take a title. And for example, here we're going to say Amazon Echo because it's Amazon Prime Day right now. So I wish they would give me commission for saying that, but they don't. So that's fine. We're going to say Amazon Echo and say it's like $19.99 or something like that. And then yeah, that's fine for now. Yeah. So let's go ahead and create this component. So we're going to say product.js. And then if you guys haven't already got this installed, just type in ES7 in your extensions and download these React Native snippets. They're game changers. Like, and this is something which 1.9 million people use. So go ahead and get them. RFCE, boom.
So you can also use RAFC. That will make an arrow function based component
Yeah.
for us.
You can use that one. This one, when I'm teaching, is a lot easier for everyone to remember that it's a function. You know, like it's sort of like it's very declarative. But you can do RAFCE. Yeah, that's correct. You can do RAFCE, and that'll give you a ES6 arrow function. But we're going to do, for now, RFCE, and then we get this. And then this takes props, and then we're using ES6 destructuring, so to kind of open up the object and get the title and price, right? So we have this, and then let's go ahead and say, like, imagine we have, I'm so ingrained into doing it the correct way now that I feel like I have to always add the class name, you know, the product class name. So here we're going to go ahead and just do a H1, a H2, sorry.
Blocks.
Exactly, BEM naming convention. We're going to go ahead and type in like just a title, for example. So we're going to say this is where the title will be. And then we're just going to have a very simple H3, and this will say like, I'm just going to do a little bit of a hacky sort of price in pounds, right? And then we're going to have some styling. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a product.css very quickly. So it's very kind of close to what we would have done typically. So we have product.css. I have my
speed is amazing.
We have this. Don't worry, it all comes in like, you will get to points where it will seem like you'll get to this naturally. Just remember, understand something well, and then it gets to a point where you can just do it without thinking. It's like driving a car. When you first drive a car, everyone is behind the wheel, like kind of like shitting themselves, like, and then you're sweating at the end of it. You smell because you're sweating so much. But now it's like you can probably drive a car after a while, and you're just kind of, you know, cruising along to music, and you know, it's the same thing with coding, right? So once you've got this, you pretty much, product is not defined. So we need to go to app. Oh God, what have I done here? This is my, why do I want this? Yeah, we got app, and then we're going to go to here, and we're going to do a little control space bar trick to import it. And then we're going to go back here. So now it says Amazon Echo 199, right? So I'm going to quickly go ahead and pop this on this page for a sec, so we can go ahead and see. I'm going to put this underneath so you guys can get a very clear visual breakdown of what's going on, right? So we've got let's make it a bit more. Okay, so now we've got this. So imagine we have like 3 products, right? So let's quickly give it a very quick styling. So we're going to say each product has a border of 1 pixel solid red. So I'm going to make it very clear to see it. And then we're going to say each product has a margin of 10 pixels, kind of gets a bit bigger. And then they're kind of bunched up in the middle. So we're going to say padding of 20 pixels. So they're kind of huge right now, yeah? So these are our products, right? These are like our special fancy products. And then imagine we want to, so what I would say is everyone, this is the approach I want you all to take, which is why I started with a functional component. I want you guys to go ahead and build the clones and things like that with functional components. And then I want you to kind of reverse engineer it so you kind of get used to class-based components in a nice way, right? And then you can go ahead and start projects from a, in a sort of, you know, in a class-based fashion, just so you get used to doing it. I'm not saying build projects with class-based components. I'm just saying the skill for it is going to be needed when you get involved in sort of in industry, right? So let's go ahead now. And what we're going to do is we're going to have the product here. So I'm going to have the product code. Oops. I'm going to have the product code here. So this is a class-based, a functional component, right? So it accepts some props, but then let's also add some state in, right? So I'm going to show you guys state and props in a functional component versus state and props in a class-based. So let's add some state, and you see very quick to go ahead and do that as well. So let's actually make this very quick to do it. So let's go ahead and just do const, and let's just say count, set count, and we're just going to have some kind of counter, right? So we're going to have use state, and then the counter is going to start with 0, and then we're going to have some kind of button. So let's just have a button with a plus, button with a minus, and then we're going to have some kind of like, I don't know, it'd be like a H4, and this will have the count inside of it. And then when you click on this button, so on click, it's going to do an inline arrow function. Oops. Ooh, we're done. Yeah. And then we're going to say set count to be whatever count is plus 1. So then now if we hit this, it goes up. And then we're going to have the same thing for, let's just go ahead and do this again, it'll be quicker. We'll do minus, right? So now I've just done some very quick sort of hacky solution here, but you see now we've got like just forget the fact it goes in negative numbers for now. But you can pretty much see we've got three different things here. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with state, remember, like I said in the beginning, state and props are two fundamentals in React, okay? Props are pretty much how we customize those apps. So let's go back to that app.js, and why isn't it letting me accept Shrika into the waiting room? Why does it say that? Okay. So here.
Yeah, I accepted him, but he couldn't join, I think.
Yeah, strange.
Accepted 2 times.
Okay, I clicked it again, but so we've got the first product, Amazon Echo. Let's just say Samsung TV, and then the final one, and that one's going to be 299 pounds, and then you've got let's just say Apple iPhone 12, because afterwards I'm looking forward to watching that event, because right now that event's streaming, the Apple event's live. If you guys didn't know that. And that's probably going to be like £12,000 or something, right? Because they overpriced their products, but we will love it. So imagine
seriously, the iMac is worth, like, it's not worth it.
I mean, I can't talk because I just spent a ridiculous amount of money on this laptop because they are worth it. Like I'm not going to lie, they have powerful products. But it's more the user experience.
Is the best product that I've seen, to be honest. Like I would prefer Windows.
Yeah. They are good products. So here we have the.
Okay, let's get back to coding now.
Exactly. So here we have the props, right? So we have the props, and then it says we got the title and price, and that's how we render out. So remember, the props are important because in React we have something called component-based design, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and I don't know how you actually save this. I think it's Kazi showed me. I think it's Control S or Command S. No. Oh, I done it. Nice. I didn't know I could do that. Okay. So let me go ahead and wipe this now. Oh, snazzy stuff, guys. We just upgraded. One sec. So now I've got to keep track of that. So here you've got, so in React, you have class component-based design. So what does that mean? Okay. Now this is, okay, so you have component-based design. So just think of it this way, right? So a web page is pretty much consisting of loads of different things. So this is our web page, right? Pretty much you just break it up into your reusable components. So some things aren't reusable, or like we don't tend to reuse them, but they're still considered a component. For example, the header, right? Then we have, for example, the footer, right? So these would be two components that we typically might have on a web page. And then in the beginning, like you might have a banner, right? So you might have a banner and you might have like a sidebar kind of thing, or some advertising panel here. And then you might have like 4 products or like some products here, right? So this is a really good sort of use case for like a demonstration of where we would have it. So imagine we would have, okay, so I didn't know you could do that as well. God, learning all sorts of shit today. Okay, so you want to you don't want each of these products to be the same thing, right? So that's where props comes in. So you use props to be able to differentiate each product from another one. But the main thing here is that you write the code once, right? Now there's many benefits to doing this. So this would be like product.js. There's many benefits to doing this because if you write the product once and you just customize it with different props, then if I change the styling of this one product.js or product.css, it's going to change it to this one. 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 And across the entire website where we use product.js, it will get changed. So you can see there's immediate power there, right? Now, also, it means that one developer could be working on the header. Another developer could be working over here. Another developer could be working over here. One developer, or like a team of 4 developers could be working on the products. And then some other guy could be doing the header. You see, like it really breaks up your app into sort of a maintainable, sort of like reusable approach. It is very, very powerful, and it's not only because it's powerful in the sense of props and state and what you can do with it, and it's fun to code in, but it's also a case of teams can work together in a much easier way with React, right? So that's another benefit to it. That's why I'm considering these as basics, because they're very, very important in terms of understanding. We need to understand this stuff in order to even start with React, okay? So I did click, okay, there we go. So we have these 3 things here, right? Now this is our class-based component. So I'm going to write this entire thing as a class-based component now, and you're going to see the entire thing, and it's going to look uglier than this. I can promise you that, right? So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to do product. Let's just call it class.js, because I'm just going to call it like the product class variant, right? So what I want to do is we all know that this is what the finished kind of, I know it's ugly, but it's the finished product, what it looks like, right? Let's go ahead and have the code side by side with each other, so that way we can see everything as we do it, right? And every now and then I'll kind of just briefly show you what we're doing here, so we can pretty much see that. Okay, so we've got the product, and then we've got the product class, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and zoom out. Can you guys still see that, or is it too small? I think I should maybe make it one notch bigger. There we go. Still good, right? So here we have the product class. So I actually forget how to do to write my class-based component. So I use this as a little sort of neat trick. So I do RFCE, no, RFC, is it? No, sorry, it's not RC, it's RCCP. There we go. Look at that. Yeah, so you see that the snippets are really good, because I don't even remember how to write them, but it gives you the things. And you can even do CCP adds prop types, but we're not going to talk about prop types today. RCC adds, it just creates the template for us. So this is the template. If we're going to keep it in the same export default fashion, I'll do it in the same way. So we'll have export default down here, right? So product class would be down here, right? So now you can see we pretty much have this is the starting point, right? Now, two things to notice: the differences between class-based and functional. Firstly, in a functional component, you just simply have the return, right? In a class-based, you have the render, and then you return some stuff. Okay, so that's the difference. You have a render in a class-based component, right? So here, what we're gonna say is let's just kind of briefly have the same thing. So we're gonna say class name equals product, and we're just going to call this one class as well, so we don't get confused. Or let's give this one the same styling. So let's just say product, right? So I mean, it's gonna.
Sonny, what exactly is the difference between render and return?
Okay, so I'll explain that now. So, so the difference between render and return. So remember, a functional component simply has inputs, it does some stuff, and then it outputs some stuff, right? So the return block is just saying, like, literally imagine we had like a function, right? So imagine we had, and this kind of is where it clicked in my head when I kind of thought of it this way. Imagine we had a function here, so like const print name, right? And this print name had like, it took a parameter called name, and then all it did was return your name is, oops, we need to use backticks. Your name is name, right? So it goes ahead and returns this string, right? And then if I do const my name printed equals print name Sonny, right? Now you see a function pretty much takes some kind of input, right? So it takes some kind of input. In this case, this would be like our kind of, consider it as a props or parameter. Take some kind of input Sonny. And then this would be like in the same case here, like this would be our props, you see, like, but here it would just be name. And then all it's doing is returning some stuff, right? So it's returning some stuff, and then that stuff gets used elsewhere. So in the context of in React, whenever we render it on the screen, so for example here, right, all this is doing is returning a block. So imagine like literally, imagine it grabs this, and where it has this, it pops that in. That's kind of what it's doing. So it's saying, right, render this out, and then because we've got the direct return, it's just pretty much going to go boom, and it pretty much goes ahead. And when React does its clever sort of compiling, and it sort of like figures everything out, it pretty much goes here, replaces this with that, goes here, replaces this with that, goes here, replaces this with that, but changes all these bits with the props that you passed in. So that's how it kind of writes the code out, right? So that's what it means by when it does the return, okay? So when it does the returning stuff here, I don't know if this maybe cleared up or not, but the point is that it's a function that just returns some stuff. But if we go back here and talk about the render. So in a class-based component, classes are a bit more complicated because they're not like a function which just has input output, right? function is a class pretty much has its own properties, it has its own functions and methods. And the thing is with a class, you can't just say, like, you can't just invoke a class. You can't just say like product. You can't just, I mean, you can in React, but typically in other programming languages, you would have to say something like const. Let's just say my component equals new product class, right? You'd have to do some fancy stuff.
To make an object for
yeah,
class.
Object call.
Yeah, you have to kind of make it into an object, and then in order to get the output of it, you'd have to do this dot render.
Dot function call.
Yeah, and then this.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad though, because it was a really good question actually, because it actually made me explain it a bit more. And that would then go ahead and replace this with this, and that's what React is doing under the hood of that block. But you see, like, there's a lot more. This is just straight up simpler. It just has some input and it does some stuff and does some output, right? It's very clear to the point. Right. So with that said, we have that done. And then now we're going to go ahead.
Sonny?
Yep.
Hey, so I wanted to ask one question. Why do you use RFCE instead of RAFCE? Isn't that like more ES6 plus?
Yeah, so the reason why I use RFC is just because it's easier to show you that it's a function. Some people who don't know what ES6 is, you would do, like, this is essentially the ES6 way. But although, yes, I agree with you. I think it's a bit cleaner. You mean you could take it a step further and you could literally just do this. You could do export.
Default.
Yeah, you could just do export default at this level, which is even more kind of confusing. But you see, you can get so caught up with making it the ES6 super standard, they kind of like loses the like in terms of readability.
Yeah.
Sometimes this is actually a lot more easier just to quickly go ahead and at a glance see, okay, we've got the client. You see, this is very clear and simple to see. So there's a balance, you know, like in this case, using the arrow function syntax is really nice.
So what would you recommend in like kind of like a professional setting?
I would say just whatever preference. Honestly, if you're going to a company and they do it this way, stick with that because you want to stay consistent with their coding patterns and respect that. If they don't do any, then I would recommend maybe doing RFCE until everyone gets familiar with it. Then maybe do. I mean, it depends really. It's all down to preference. There's no like right or wrong, but as long as you're doing functional over class based, that's the more important area, right?
Yeah, because I just see David using RAFCE instead.
I just think from a teaching perspective, seeing that it says function is a lot more understandable than just seeing const. Because some people might be like, I'm getting lost at that point, and you don't. Yeah. Okay, so with that said, we're gonna have a H2 here, and this one's gonna be, it's gonna have some kind of title, right? But here we don't have a title. We don't even accept props at this point, right? So this is where components kind of get a bit, class-based components get a bit more confusing because here now, what we're going to have is we're going to have something called a constructor. And then that takes something called props. And then you have to say super props. I'm not even sure if you need this bit, to be honest, at the point anymore. But you would have this, right? And then what you'd have to say is here, you say this dot props dot title, right? Just to be able to get to this title, you need to write this stuff. You need a constructor which does this, and then you have to say this dot props dot title. Now, in a lot of cases,
You know how in like functional components we could like destructure the props into like title and then price, rating, stuff, right? But in class-based, we have to like mention the general name props, and then later we could like this dot state and then the specific props, right?
Yeah, so you have to say this firstly, and then you have to say props. And then, I mean, here you could also have it so you don't destructure, and then you say props.title, props.price. So here, if we did this, you would then have to do props dot, but you don't have the this. You see, you don't have the this headache, right? But here, in a lot of cases, and I've seen so many people who are learning to code run into this issue. And they would, and I've worked with junior developers in companies, and they've been like, "Say, I'm kind of stuck. My code's not compiling," and it's purely because in a class-based component they just did this. They did not this. They did like that on the screen where it says props.title. But you see, they actually have to have this. And the reason being is because, remember, guys, when I showed you the example earlier, right here, prompts my component equals new product class. The reason why we actually have this is because, I mean, it's a bit kind of confusing to kind of wrap head around, but it means that this instance of, so here we actually create like an instance. So imagine that we've basically created like an object of this class. So imagine these are a product class. Imagine it's like the blueprints, right? And then we create an object like from that blueprint, right? So this is our object. And then inside the class now, it says this, like this object, so this instance dot props dot title. So it's kind of like it goes to that level, which is, whereas a function is just like, right, you gave me some kind of prop, you gave me some kind of input. I'm going to use that input and I'm going to give you something out. You see, it's a lot simpler than class-based. But that was a good question. Yep. So here we have this.props.title, and then pretty much I'm going to do the same thing over here now. So I'm going to go ahead, pop this in here. But we can't have, you see how in functional components we have set count, right? And also here we need to change this to this.props.price. Here we have a problem now. We don't have this functionality. So I'm going to get rid of the onClicks, right? Because we can't use set count because that's using hook stuff, and hook stuff is literally supported inside of functional components only, right? So here it works for this because we use state, right? Now, the first thing I want to show you guys is when we use the use state hook, the benefit is that we get the variable that we just created, for example, here the count, but then we also get a setter method, right? And the beauty of it is that that setter method is only going to be used for the modifying the count, right? You can't change any other. So imagine if I had another variable called, let's just call it like age, or some random thing called age or something. And then here, I can't use set age to modify the count, and I can't use set count to modify the age, right? They're kind of isolated. So it's going to prevent bugs because when you see set count, it means that I'm changing the count, right? But in a class-based component, you don't have that. Firstly, in order to set up things, like for example, here in our first line, we've set up the state. Here, I would have to do the following. I have to say this.state, which again, it could be confusing. You might forget how to write that. And then you look at the state as an object. You say this.state, and then you say count of 0. So this essentially is replacing this, right? Now, if I want to increment on click, right? So let's go ahead and do on click. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have an arrow function, right? But here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a block of code. So here I can have console logs and all sorts of stuff. But inside this block of code, when I click now, I actually have to say this.set state, right? And then I have to do, and you can actually go ahead and take the old state, but I'm not going to show you guys that method. I'm just going to say you do this.set state, and you pass in what you want the new state to look like, right? So in this case, I mean, we will do this. We will show the old method actually. We'll say, we'll call it previous state. And then we want to use the previous state to determine what the new state would look like. So it's kind of, oh, this is kind of weird, right? So like you say count, and then you can pretty much go ahead and say, so I want to change the count to be whatever the previous state was, dot count plus 1, right? Or you could say this dot state dot count, and you can get rid of this. Yeah, so you could be like this dot set state, and then the count is currently whatever the state is plus 1. But you see here, the problem is that I could then, what if I'm typing and I accidentally just do this, right? Or I accidentally type in like, I mean, you wouldn't type in age here, but as in what if I accidentally did that, or if I accidentally went ahead and did this, you see, like, as in, I know it seems like small mistakes, but when you have like loads of things, like for example, first name, last name, phone number, mobile number, you see like it can become very quickly, like you start mixing and matching, and you're going to break something. But the point is that now, and imagine, say, for example, I had age here. So every time I clicked on it, so imagine the person's 10 in the beginning. And as soon as you click that button, the age goes up by let's just say the age goes to 20 for some reason, right? But say, for example, here now, when I click the plus button, I should only be changing the count, but I'm also, someone added this code here that changes the age too, right? You see, it's kind of like, this is kind of like bad because like it's very easy to make this mistake, right? As in like somebody could go ahead and just add this in here. Or if they're using like objects or arrays, it gets even more like sort of prone to error and things like that. And also, guys, just look at the code already, right? Look at the difference in code. Like the code's already kind of.
I can't even understand like, a thing in that code, and I can basically understand everything in Products.js.
Yeah, so this one right here is much cleaner, right? It's literally a case of 19 lines, and that's literally 19 lines, and we've spread out the code. If I wanted to get this shorter, we could literally just do this, and you could literally have this, and then you could just do something like that, and then you have 17 lines of code. You see? And also, we don't need this here. We can just go ahead and do this. And now we've got, 16 lines of code, right? So you see, like it's pretty much, it's a lot smaller. And again,
It's not just about the lines of code. Like I'm good with writing a lot of lines of code, but the understanding is more important, right? Like I'm not being able to understand anything like what the hell is super, what the hell is constructor.
Yeah.
Here I can easily understand everything that's going on, right?
Exactly. So you see, like in here, so someone might come in, and this is again another problem. What if somebody comes in here and changes, like they went to change the age to like 20 or something, but then they've sort of messed up, like they messed up one of these things, or like if you had an array and they've changed it. Whereas here you would have an individual line for every piece of state, and each individual piece of state gets its own modifier or own setter, which is only responsible for modifying that piece of state. Right, so you see they've incrementally built upon the issues and errors that they sort of saw in the past, and they realized that, okay, let's not do the same mistake. And you can see now that, like, if we had this, right, so now what I'm going to show you is, imagine I've come into a company and they've got this product class, right? I'm going to show you how quick it is to go ahead and change all of this code in to a functional component, right? So I'm not going to look at the other one, but I'll show you what I would kind of typically do if I was to kind of see this and I saw that, okay, we're using some of this stuff here, and I know that we've got a set state over here, and looks like the developer didn't even bother finishing the on click here, so I'm going to go ahead and do this and say this dot state -1. Okay, so imagine already, and that wasn't even the full code, so yes, even longer than we thought. 43 lines of code, right? And you want your code to be nice and simple and short, and also extends component. If you forget to do that, whereas inside of the other one, we didn't. Yeah, here we didn't do any of that, right? And in some cases, you see people doing this React.component, and they don't import it here. So you might see that. And there's something called a pure component as well, but I'm not going to get into that for now. All you need to know is that a functional component is more performant than a pure component, as far as I'm aware. I'm sure.
Can I say something?
Yep.
So I think that the most important thing by converting a class-based component to a functional-based component is that the understanding of the class-based component is extremely important. Like if I didn't understand what he's doing in each and every line of code over here,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that I would mess up the entire code and I would break something 100%.
100%.
But if I understood like what is the purpose of that constructor, and what is the purpose of that render function, then I think that I would be able to change the code really quickly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And because you said that, I'm going to take it a step further and do a use effect in here and say,
if at some point, if I try to do that, I would definitely get stuck at use effect thing.
Yeah, like
There's no way I'm good.
Exactly, the use effect's going to change, right? Or, I mean, like you're going to be like, oh shit, like I don't know how to do this right now, yeah. And also, I'm going to show you an example of where like use effect actually went ahead and changed something which most developers, even good developers, with class-based components, didn't actually know how to properly overcome. And trust me, I worked with some really good developers, and they still got stuck on this one problem. So I'll show you. So imagine like every time the count changes, I want to sort of console log and say, boom, the count just changed. Or let's make it interesting. Let's say if the count mod 2. So I think that means that if the count is divisible by, if there's no remainder after it's divided by 2, then we're going to console log and say it is odd, right? I think it's odd then, right?
Even.
Oh, it's even, right? Yeah. To be honest, I always forget. I just kind of do one, and then if it's not that, I do the other one.
It doesn't matter. Look at that, guys. He's not even a good mathematician. He doesn't even know that he's not an even, and he's like the god of React, so it doesn't matter of math. Some people say that math is important. No,
Yeah, you don't
I'm
need to
super
be a
bad at
genius
maths.
of maths. Yeah, like you
I'm
don't.
super bad at maths. I'm lazy. I would literally go and do it in calculator instead of using my own brain.
Exactly. Yeah. So you don't need to be a genius of maths, guys. But if the count here is greater than one sec. If the count here is greater than sorry, if there is a mod after this, then it is even, right? So we're gonna go ahead and check that this works. Let's go ahead and try that out. Let's go ahead and see here. Boom. Open up this. Use effect is not defined. Let's go here and do this. Auto import from React. Okay. So let's go ahead and open up the console. And here, so if I go ahead and do it is even. No, I was right, guys. I think I was right. Mean? Yeah. So look, if it's 0, now it's even. See, so we want it to only fire off when it's. Wait.
What? Oh, because you forgot to put a condition. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's like equal.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's still. It's going to check if it's because this is firing.
It's saying like if count mod 2, then it'll just be like, oh, if it does count mod 2 and it's true. If it like even fired that, so you have to put an equal,
then
it will
equal 0.
It is firing when it's odd though. Like.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because you said like.
But we could
equals 0.
Yeah.
The operation is successful, so it's just doing true. Like I did that, so it's true.
By the way, guys, the triple equal to just means that it is going to be the same as integer, and like it will be a string, and like JavaScript does this weird thing that it can compare a string and an integer.
Yeah.
But triple equal to it has to be an integer and an integer, or a string and a string.
Yeah, it's doing it based on Boolean. You're right. Yeah. So here we have now it's saying if it's odd, there we go. Perfect. Yeah. So again, that's a good exercise. So you can go ahead and play with that. So now it's odd, it's even, it's odd, it's even, right? But now, for example, so we have this kind of weird, quirky functionality, right? So God knows when you go into a company, there's crazy stuff that happens in component will mount, did mount, use effects and stuff. The point is that this one fires off when the count changes and then here. And also, if you didn't know, you can have several use effects. So I didn't actually know that until way too late.
Tharva had one problem and he fixed it with adding just one more use effect. So it was like till date we do not know how he solved it, but it was the problem that he fixed with adding one more use effect.
That was totally random. I was working with geolocation, and like the value went through the reducer and it was working. Like we console logged each and every line, and when the value came out of reducer, it was resetted back, and we had no idea what was happening there.
Yeah, it can happen, and again, this goes back to your understanding of like reading up on this stuff will make the difference between understanding what went wrong and what didn't go wrong, you know. But now let's go ahead and like you see the product component loaded, the product component loaded, the product component loaded, and if I fire it off again, it never fires that code again because if you have an empty dependency bracket, it only loads once when it loads and it doesn't load again, right? So let's go ahead and rewrite. So I'm literally gonna try and do all of this without looking right now. So in product class, right? So here. So the first thing I would do is pretty much go ahead and see that, right, what pieces of state, what pieces of props. So I've got one piece of state that's being used, count, okay? So we're gonna need a count, like we're gonna need some kind of use state hook, right? So what I would do is I'd literally start rewriting it here. I'd say const product class. I don't need this anymore. We can do an arrow function. It takes props, and then we can do this, right? Now we don't need the constructor, but rather than just deleting it straight away, I look at the constructor and say, okay, I've got age and I've got count, right? Now is age actually being used? Not really. It's not really used anywhere, right? So we don't need the age. So here I'm going to do const. And I'm going to start writing the hooks that I need. So I'm going to need the count, set count equals use state, import it, and then the initial value they gave it was 0. Okay, so they gave the 0 here. So now I'm confident that I've replaced the bits that we need, so I can delete the constructor, right? Now, I remember functional components don't need a render, so I can pretty much look at the closing bracket. And this is a trick for you lot, so you don't get caught up with what, you know, when you accidentally close a bracket, you're like, shit, where's the other one? And you're trying to look for it.
Bracket colorizer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know.
From VS Code.
I don't like that. I've used it. I don't know. I mean, it's preference. Like, you can use it. I personally, I don't know.
I mean, they don't use like different colors for each one. It's kind of like the same colors.
Yeah, I just like using.
I have it installed. It doesn't even make a difference for me. Like I don't even care. I don't even look
I
at
click on the bracket, and then you can, if you go down, you see this one's actually highlighted. So then I click that, and I know that it's that one then, and I can get rid of it. And then, but I mean, it helps a lot of people. It's a very popular extension. So now we've got the return. Now I don't need this .props.title, so I can go ahead and change that to the, just becoming props.title. And then we've got the on click, right? Now the set state. Now, rather than doing all of this, I can just go ahead and I know it's only one line of code, so I don't even need these brackets. But I can pretty much go ahead and say e.setState set count to whatever the count is +1, and I can get rid of the set state call. Save it, and then here, same thing. I can go ahead and I don't need these extra brackets because we've got more than that. We can just go set count -1. Pretty much get rid of that. And now look how much cleaner our code is, and we can pretty much go ahead and get rid of this, right? But we also had a problem, right? We had the use effect. So that was an example of doing it without the sort. That was a straight sort of change into that. But let's go ahead and undo, and let's go ahead and show you how you would have those complicated, weird use effect conditions that we've added in here. So you would have, the first one was. Let's go ahead and show you. We've got product.js. So here. So we had this one. So when the component loaded, right? So here we can say component did mount. So after the component mounts, they might have a console.log, and then here we'll say the product component loaded. Okay. Let's do it like this. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to import it from our product class instead. Okay, so it's going to be the same product, but we're importing it from product class instead now. So it says count is not defined on line 32. Count is not defined on line 32. Okay, yeah, so here again, see another headache. So you got to say this dot state dot count, right? So we go back, and now this is the, you see it works. It says the product component loaded, right? And if I try and change it, everything's working in our class-based component now. Okay, but just to prove to you that it is the one, we can say the class product component loaded, right? The class product component loaded. Okay, so everything there is still the class one. And then, for example, this one is actually more tricky now, right? So it's actually saying, I think this one we would use component will receive props. You see, and this is another issue. Look how many deprecated lifecycle methods they went through. Right, so they realized that one wasn't good, so they went ahead and marked it as unsafe, and they deprecated it. And then they went ahead and changed this one, so they deprecated it. And then they went ahead and changed something else. So now this is a new lifecycle method, did update, right? And I don't even know which one this takes. So I think this maybe gives us, what do they give you with component did update? Is it props? I don't think so. But the one I used to use for this was component did, should component update. So you can actually determine if a component should update. And again, you see, like the point I'm trying to show you here is already it's just confusing as to which one do I choose, right? Like, do I choose this one, this one, this one? If we go ahead and do component did update, I think it gives you something called props, and then you can go ahead and say console log props. But even here, nope, we've got props. Nope. Okay, so component did update. Let's go ahead and just quickly check this. Component did update.
You know, being a developer means that you're a professional Googler.
Yep, exactly. You become a professional Googler, dude. And you see, like, look, even the bloody documentation is more annoying. Like, it really does get to a point where it gets annoying. But the one that we're interested in is props, and component did update. So here, you get the previous props to previous state, and then here, this is exactly it. Yeah, so this is the one we kind of need. So see, it gives you the previous props, and then it's saying if, and again, this is, oh, so we're not actually checking the state here, as in here we're checking against our own state. But what I would actually say is, oh no, sorry. I know. So you wouldn't do it here even for this use case. You would actually have the code inside the render block. You would actually go ahead and say if count. So when it renders, you would have it here. So, I mean, you can have a component did update, and you can pretty much go ahead and check against props and say, like, if something changed with the props, then change something else. But again, here in the render block now, it should be the same thing. So it should say count. So this one again, if this dot state dot count. And you can see, look, firstly, now look at this. We've got two things. So now like some other things bugging out and it's being weird, you see, but it's working, but now it's rendering out twice. And that there's a reason why. But the point is that like even digging into that, like it just gets to a point where it's like, why? Like, as in, why do we need to know like how to do it in this way? All I would tell you is like, if you need to do it this way, firstly, you're not going to come across a situation like this, to be honest, ever. Yeah, you're never going to run into that one, but you will run into situations where you got component did mount and component will unmount, for example, right? Now, imagine we had a component did mount and component will unmount. So component will unmount. Oops. And then let's go ahead and say, like, on the component did mount, this is a good example, actually. We could say the component, the class product component loaded, and let's just say the expensive DB connection was made. Yeah. So imagine it creates that connection in the beginning, right? So the expensive DB connection was made, the expensive, so each time they loaded, the expensive one was made, right? And then imagine like it refreshed or something and it made another one, but it didn't detach the old one. It's going to cost you a lot of money, okay? So in the unmount, you would then say, and obviously these are console logs, they're not actually functional code, but you would have the code here, right?
Sonny, what's detaching anyways? Like, do we use that in Firebase or something?
Yeah, so you would use it in Firebase as well, yeah. So in Firebase is a way we would usually have it where I did it in one of the builds. I don't do it in all the builds, but in some of the builds, I actually show you how to use unsubscribe when you do a Firestore listener. So when you use onSnapshot, there's something called unsubscribe that you can use inside of a use effect, which gives you a very nice detaching mechanism. But here,
did you use that in the Discord clone?
No. So
because I know you talked about snapshots in that one, but
yeah.
I wasn't sure.
So for anyone who's watched it, I'll quickly give you a quick brief update. So imagine we had like a use effect here, so use effect, and then here, imagine you've got like, so imagine you had a DB. Oops. So obviously it's going to freak out because we don't have a DB in this code, but we're going to say db.collection, and then imagine you had a collection of users, and then you had on snapshot. So this is kind of the Firebase code that we've all may have seen. If you've done any of the clones, you would be familiar with what I'm writing right now, or kind of. And then you'd have this, and then you would kind of typically have some kind of mapping. So you'd say something like set users, if you had some user state, to snapshot.docs.map. And then you say for every doc, map the doc. Oh yeah, Victor, this was to answer. You did the ID. Was it? No, it was your brother, Brett, wasn't it? Was Brett your brother or not?
No, Angel.
Okay, Angel. So I think, is Brett still in here or not? I think he's gone. Okay. I mean, if he watches it back. But the point is, he asked earlier about how do we map against the ID. And the way we would do it is we do it here. You'd say ID doc.id. Then you do, oh God, yeah. And we say,
I mean, if we want real-time database, we never want to unsubscribe, right?
yeah, so, but the thing is, right, so you may have seen this in previous ones, right? So where I've done this and it maps to the Firestore DB. But what you can actually do in it to make it super efficient and optimal, to make sure that it never has an extra sort of, because trust me, in some apps, when it's sort of re-rendering a lot, this may not get detached correctly, right? So I wouldn't just trust Firebase to handle it. So what this does is this on snapshot gives you back a function called unsubscribe. So what you do is you say const unsubscribe, unsubscribe equals this, right? And then what you do is in the cleanup function, so the way you clean up after a use effect is you say return, and then it does it like this, and then you pretty much just say unsubscribe. And now you have a perfectly...
I used cleanup. When the moment I use cleanup, because I used to make like socket connections using all of these things.
Yeah.
And when I used it in normally, like where you have made the DB collections, then the problem is that it set up 2 listeners at a time, and that was a problem. But when I did that in return, it made only 1 listener.
Yes, exactly. And now imagine this, right? Imagine you had, so if anyone, I'd recommend all of you guys and girls want to try and do some kind of socket.io at some point and just try and mess around with it just to see how this stuff works behind the scenes. But the point is that like, if you don't add the sort of unsubscribe or detach, right? Firebase is really that they've built it very well, which means that if you don't add this, chances are I think they do it. But the point is that I've seen in before it didn't used to do it, so it's only recently I think they've added that. But if you don't do it, the point is that Athava just said that 2 attached instead of 1. Right now, imagine you have imagine your app scales overnight, and you've got, as soon as you go on your Facebook 2.0 feed, you've basically gone ahead and created this new sort of, I don't know, it's called like Tindev, the Tinder that we built pretty much before. But imagine you do that and it's got like 5,000 things now. Instead of rendering 5,000 listeners, it's going to render 10,000 listeners. You see, and then that's not only 10,000 listeners. It's kind of like we call this big O notation in computer science, but it's like if you have a problem which seems small with like 2 users, right? It can get incrementally exponentially bigger, right?
The time space complexity, right?
Yeah, it can get exponentially bigger, which means you might not see the problem at 2 users, but even at 10,000 users, that problem is huge, right? It's not like in proportion. It doesn't just double and get bigger. It gets huge afterwards, which becomes like a really, really big problem to deal with.
Like an example is that if you have a chat listener and then if you don't use it in return, so what it will do, like whenever you get a message, it will be displayed on the screen 2 times.
Yeah.
Just because you have that in use effect, and that will just set up the listener 2 times.
Exactly. Just because it says.
I faced a lot of times, and it took me a lot of time to figure that out.
Yeah, and exactly. And to be honest, that's something which, like, if anyone's watching this who has experienced any of those similar issues, then that's a really big top tip, because I remember I suffered the same thing, Athava, and like my app started to freeze and get slow and all sorts, and I was like, what's going on? I don't know. Yeah. And obviously it's harder to debug because if you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know how to debug that. There is ways of actually using the inspector to go ahead and check what listeners are getting attached.
It's like finding a needle in the patch of hay.
Yeah, like when you don't know the correct tools to go ahead and find out what's going on, you have no idea. You just see your app getting slow for no reason, what it seems like. But
I think everyone should just read the use effect documentation, because before using use effect, I used to just make the listeners and just like where you define state and everything. And what that did, like whenever the component re-rendered, it just make listeners, and like it had 10,000 listeners and just crashed the entire page.
Exactly, 100. And literally, even look at this, guys. In the documentation, they even talk about subscription, like a subscribe and unsubscribe, similar to as Athava is saying. It's like a listen, like as in socket.io, you would have a listener which attaches on the component loading, and then when it unmounts. And now, for those of you who are kind of new to React and kind of aren't sure what we're talking about when we talk about re-rendering or that sort of stuff, imagine when I click the count button, right? So imagine when I go here and I click on where's my app, localhost. Imagine when I click this button, right? Every time I click it, it re-renders this component, right? It re-renders it because I've changed something inside of it. So I've changed a piece of state. It does it in a very clever way. It checks it against something called a virtual DOM, and it checks what changed, what do I need to re-render. But we're not going to go too much into that. But I would recommend reading up on what the virtual DOM is and how it compares, because it is interesting how it does it. And the main thing is that every time we do this, if you haven't coded your stuff correctly, for example, if your use effect had, if you don't include these empty brackets, for example, and you just did this, your code's kind of on an infinite loop, right? So I'm going to show you guys another example now. Imagine now we're going to import it again from product, because I don't want to have that again. I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring this code back over here. I'm going to get rid of this unsubscribe for now. But I'm going to show you guys if with the use effect, right? With the use effect.
Sonny, I have a question.
Yep.
So why do you use the snapshot? The one you use the snapshot, right?
This one you mean? So why do I use this?
Yeah. So what's the use of the snapshot?
So this is firstly for Firestore. So we haven't implemented anything here. I was just sort of showing something from builds. But on snapshot, as opposed to get in Firebase terms, on snapshot gives you a row time listener. So I'd recommend checking out the builds. And the main thing is that the on snapshot will give you a real time sort of like listener to the database, which means that if anyone adds a document inside the collection that you're checking, for example, if any new user is added, it would refire this code. automatically. So it would refire the code inside of here because it basically goes ahead, imagine like a camera pointing at that point, that space in the database. If anything changes, gets added, gets deleted, it takes a picture of it as a snapshot and gives you the code and says, rerun this. Right? So every time it changes, we pretty much go ahead and...
like a pusher.
Hey, Sonny?
Yeah.
You are writing unsubscribe. 1 second. If you cannot delete that. Yeah. You're writing unsubscribe. Won't that create a thread again? Like it's just creating that... like you are calling a variable, like a function in that variable. So it's just...
oh yeah,
creating...
so to I know it can be confusing. I see your point. So this on snapshot actually returns something called it's a function. So this so this returns a function and then you just invoke the function. It's kind of, I remember in the beginning when I was like, how the hell do I unsubscribe? I couldn't figure it out. But the way is that this actually returns a function, just like a function returns, like it can return a string, an object, or something like that. This just returns a function which is uninvoked, and then here we call it when we want to unsubscribe, and it will. And this function that is created is linked to this listener.
So we do like a function not unsubscribe, or we directly just call the unsubscribe.
You just call because the unsubscribe is getting it's a const, it's a variable which gets assigned to this, and this kind of I wish I had the code up, but let me go ahead and try and find Amazon clone.
This is really confusing.
So snapshot, it's kind of like what snapshot actually means. Like it takes a picture, extracts the data, and then puts it into your code.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Sonny, what if we are using in production and we have like 1 million records and like they would be changing too fast and we will get snapshot at each and everything?
So
will it cause any problems?
So you said if we get on time, so you have to be okay. So this is where architecture comes into play. So it's definitely a true thing. Imagine if you had like 5,000 things on the screen being rendered all with on snapshot. Yes, you've got 5,000 listeners on your screen at once. It's a bad build, as in like you shouldn't have that. Instead, what you should have maybe is a on snapshot which feeds simply information into an array. Right, that's pretty easy, right, to do that, right? So it's not very intensive. Even if it's got like 1,000 records in the array, really doesn't matter. What I would say then, so imagine, okay, so I'm going to put that into practice to show you actually. So let's go ahead and say we had on snapshot, and then let's just say we had, I'm going to make this a bit more simpler. So this is getting a bit nitty gritty, but we'll go ahead and do it. But let's go ahead and say map this to set users. And imagine we had a data set called users, right? So let's go ahead and say users. And let's just say your app exploded overnight and your users are being rendered on the screen, right? So you've got like 1 million users tomorrow, right? And this by default was an empty array. And imagine like your users filled up and on your return block, so over here, you had some kind of loop which was like users.map. And then it was rendering out a user, right? So for every user, it was going ahead and saying something like H2 user, right? Now think about what's happening here. Yes, you might be thinking, right? You have to, okay, so it's kind of, I have to word this carefully so you see where the problem lies. Is that, okay, so if you've got one component where even if there was 1 million records getting mapped here, right? Not 1 million. Let's just say like 500. If you've got 1 million things on the page, it's never a good idea, right? But if you've got like 100 things 100 users being fed into an array, all React's doing is it's rendering out the list, right? But the difference which makes this optimal against not being optimal is, for example, including keys, right? If you've got huge lists, right, you should always include a key. Because a key, imagine you've got a huge list being rendered on the screen. A key is basically, to remember what I said, so React is something where it carefully checks what it needs to re-render, right? Now imagine you've got a list of 1,000 elements on a page and it renders that the first time. And yeah, sure, it's going to take a little bit longer to do 1,000 elements. But imagine every single one has a unique key against it, right? Now imagine 500 users get added or they kind of swarm in to your app. if you don't have a key, it's going to re-render 1,500 users in that list. It's going to re-render the entire list, right? If you have keys, it only needs to re-render 500 because it knew that, hang on, the only thing that changed are 500 new records with these unique keys got added. So I only need to now slot those in. Super clever how it works. It's really, really clever how it works. But the point is that if you don't add keys in, it's going to add, it's 1,500 renders against 500 extra renders, right? So in this case, for a user, don't ever use the index as well. I know like some people sometimes do this. They do map and then they kind of like, oh, I need a key. I'll use I, right? This is a bad habit. The reason being is because this is not a unique value, right? When it re-renders, I is going to change, which means I is kind of messed up. And people do use it.
Yes, we can use UUID to get random things and just.
Yeah, you can use UUID, which is good. Or if you're pulling it from somewhere like Firebase, rather than just pulling the database, the data, what I would say is map it to an object like this, and pretty much go ahead and do this. So have data being mapped to the data, and then have the ID being mapped to the ID field inside of Firebase. So it'll get the document ID, and then here when you get the user, you pretty much detach it and you say ID data. It's a bit confusing because we haven't got context here, but the point is that the ID would be the ID in the database, right?
That really fixed my problem with the Twitter clone, because in the Twitter clone, you pass us as a key prop, you pass the text.
Yeah.
And you did explain briefly how to do it with the doc ID.
Yeah.
And I was trying to play with it and I couldn't figure it out, but now you're explaining it here.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go back and fix it.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad it helped you out, dude, because it's a very good thing to kind of like it. And to be honest, the first time you see it, it's always like, I don't really understand that fully. And then somebody will say something, or you'll see a tutorial, you'll do like an exercise, and they'll be like, oh shit, wait, kind of clicked a little bit. And then you go back, kind of play with it, and then it'll click. And that's the whole process in it, like again and again and again, like that's where it's going to come into play. But we talked about hooks and we talked about sort of like the difference between class-based and functional and the kind of building back and forth between them. And it's a very important skill to have, right? That skill of being able to take a class-based component, change it to functional, and just being able to read code that is written in both functional and class-based, right? We know now that functional components are the ones that we want to kind of drive towards. It's where the sort of like the whole sort of industry is going towards for many reasons that we explained about. And now kind of touching base back on the main concepts, what I would say is in terms of the basics of React, right? All of these elements, like if I asked you to explain what JSX is right now, the real answer that you need to really say is it's kind of it's a mush between like HTML and JavaScript. It's basically HTML, which allows you to have JavaScript inline, right? That's all it basically is. But just like understanding like, okay, all right, so that's what JSX is, like in the beginning when you start off with React, it can kind of like go a bit over the head and kind of be like, I don't know what that is. And then it even shows you examples here, just seeing how it works and how you can run it. And there are differences in JSX. For example, you can't have the if keyword in JSX, right? So if you wanted to have, you can't have it inside of JSX. So for example, here, if I wanted to say if...
You'd have that optional ternary thing, right?
Exactly. But some people might be like, if count is greater than 2, then do this. And they'll be like, oh my God, my code's not working, right? So here, exactly.
I did that thing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do it, right? Here you could either have this. So you mean if the count is greater than 2, then render this out. Or you can have if the count is greater than 2, render out H2 is greater than 2. So we can just say it's more than 2. Else H2 it's less than 2, right? So you could do that, right? And obviously it's freaking out for some weird reason. Did you mean, okay, yeah, it's just being some annoying thing, but...
And Sonny, what I think that we should have a call on Firebase so that people just get it.
Yeah.
Like snapshot and all this.
I think that we actually dropped a really good video on, it's a snippet video on Snapshot. So it's on YouTube right now. And Shrika knows, it's literally one that we dropped, we snipped a bit out when me and Kazi were talking. Because what we do is whenever we drop like a golden nugget, like we kind of try and capture those moments and sort of like shoot it as its own video. So it's kind of like a value bomb for you. So there is a video on Snapshot right now. So we've got that, guys. And then we've talked
Also,
about,
like,
yep.
I think what
Yep.
Sonny, where are all these videos, like this snapshot videos?
It's on YouTube.
Are they on the YouTube?
Yep, it's on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think that was my internet, actually. I'm not sure if I cut off on YouTube. But the rendering elements, so I would recommend going here, checking out this. Components and props, like we talked about the difference, like look, function and class-based components. It will show you different examples. It will show you like, and honestly, it's actually like, it's the only documentation I don't mind reading, right? Like, because in React, I actually don't mind reading their sort of, their documentation. And also, this is a very good question. Bala Ganesh actually just said on YouTube, he says, what is the difference in naming file extensions project.js against product.js against product.jsx, but he said project.jsx. It's a good question. So if you're manually doing this, or if you enter a company, they might not be able, they might have .jsx, right? But if you use create React app, under the hood, they do some clever stuff, which means that you don't have to write .jsx. But these files, don't get confused, they are .jsx files. So you see when I changed the .jsx, it changed to React, the logo, right? So they are .jsx, but because we use create React app, they have like all of this sort of special compiling stuff that happens that goes on before we sort of like it runs. And that's where we do it. And also, guys, if you're considering, don't ever run npm run eject. It's a one-way thing. Once you eject your app from create React app, you can't undo it. Yeah. So don't do that.
With React Native and
Hey, Sonny, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what Atharva was trying to say was maybe like we could have a coaching call on Firebase, like we could make, or something like we can make a big Firebase project using like all of the possibilities of Firebase, like authentication, Firestore, and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the best way is like, yeah, I mean, I'm always down for that. Always down for that. What I would say is, for anyone who hasn't, I mean, Atharva's definitely done a lot of the builds, but he's literally wrote Medium articles on the build, so he's definitely done the builds. But what I would say is, and they're awesome, guys. If you haven't checked them out, really go. I recommend go check out them, because it's literally the extent that you broke it down is like seriously impressive. Like, I was amazed when I read it. I was reading through it and I was like, oh my God. Like, and the thing that blows my mind is that I remember coding that from scratch as in the beginning. And the fact you put it all into words was like as I was reading it, I was like, this is exactly what I was thinking as I did it. Like, so
that blog was insanely long.
Yeah.
It was long, like it's 21 minutes read.
No,
Yeah,
but the build itself took like 3 days though.
Yeah. It took like 3 days.
And then they also had like technical bug issues.
Like I
with
made the
Facebook.
solution for the problems I faced. Like sometimes I had to get some code like from some part of the video, and it would take me a long time to just get some part of the video from the 4-hour-long video.
Yeah, it's
So
tricky.
if I have a blog which has everything, like well, how do I do stuff? Like it would be so good. So
Yeah. Dude, honestly, amazing stuff. Like I remember when you sent me the link, I was blown away when I saw that. That was a really impressive that you did that. So definitely go ahead and check that out, guys, because it will help you guys out in terms of, if you haven't done that build yet, go ahead and do that alongside the sort of video and check it out, because it is impressive, like article. Yeah. So state and life cycle, basically. Okay, so going back onto the points, right? So we have events and stuff like that. Again, even events and stuff like that. For like here it says, for example, the HTML for this is slightly different in React, and we write this, right? You see, it's small differences. Like, as in, this is, if you've come from HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you'll be like, yeah, this is how I write my code, right? And then you come over to React, and you're like, oh my God, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then you kind of like, you see it differently, whereas it gives you clear examples of how it was done before and how you would now do it, right? So this is something I recommend that everyone goes ahead and master. It doesn't matter if you've coded React, doesn't matter if you've done tutorials and builds, go through this main concepts And also Priyanshu and Athava, maybe go ahead and drop the link to the blog inside of the Zoom chat and also on YouTube, because they're I think Priyanshu is doing it on YouTube. Priyanshu is doing it on YouTube, and maybe if you could drop it in the Zoom chat. Conditional rendering, this is where we talked about the sort of
I'll just drop the Clever Programmer link from Medium. Like it has 3 blogs.
Awesome stuff, dude.
There's also on the Clever Programmer blog, there's also blogs. We posted it recently on React Context API and Redux, if you don't understand both of them.
Amazing, dude. It blows my mind. Like, oh my God, there's stuff happening that I have no idea about at times. And I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, we got a team over here doing this now. It's like things are happening so fast that like me and Kazi just jump on calls now. And we're like, I'm like, yo, did you know we're doing this now? He's like, oh my God, are we doing that? And he's like, yeah, we're doing this one for this one. I'm like, holy shit, we're doing that. Like, and it's a fun thing that to watch everything grow, but it's awesome. Like we literally go for walks. So I would literally grab my headphones and then Kazi would go for a walk in LA. I'd go for a walk in London, and we'd just talk for like an hour and then sort of like align and then crack on with stuff. It's awesome to see. But like the team is growing. It's amazing stuff. Like honestly, I really love the community we're building.
Another thing is that CP is planning on releasing a blog almost every single day on some really great content about like clones.
Exactly.
And
so
cannot give a lot of details about it, but there is a lot of it coming right now.
Exactly. So it's exciting stuff.
True.
Yeah. And in terms of like you guys wanting, like everyone watching right now, in terms of like learning and trying to digest and sort of going into like building your career as a React developer, literally take every single opportunity that you can get to go ahead and build, whether it be like, well done, firstly, every single one of you for being on the call right now and watching and kind of staying here right now. Because like, I'm telling you, this is going to be the difference. And like the work you're putting in now, I'm telling you, will transform your entire life. And it will put you in a position where like, it has not been possible to be able to like work in React developers have such a nice way of working. I'm telling you, like you can work remote wherever you are in the world. Like my last full-time job was fully remote. Like I literally used to just wake up and answer a call in the morning, and as I'm brushing my teeth, I'd be on another call. And like you can have a very nice setup with your work, you know, like and you can travel, you can do whatever you need to do, and you can still get paid and do what you need to do. So it's awesome to do that. But yeah, going back to the sort of React basic stuff. So main concepts, guys, I want you guys to all pretty much like master this section, right? Like as in go through it, and once you've gone through it, go through it again. Like just read through it, because every time you read through it, there's going to be another bit that you're going to be like, oh, okay, like that's solid, because this is your foundation. Once you have this foundation solid, everything else will be like secondary, and it will kind of stack on very easily, right? Now, once you're sort of done with that, advanced guides, you can see there's tons of things here. Now, even all of this, like some of this stuff, I mean, I've used most of it, but there's always some areas, for example, portals. I've used portals once, and then there's a lot of cases where I don't use, or I haven't used a lot of this, but you guys can go ahead and take this to that next level. But what I would say is, yeah, with that done, and also once you're sort of done as well with that, there's a whole nother section of testing, right? Testing is a whole nother area you can have testing. I think it would actually be pretty cool to move into some kind of TDD, which is test-driven development, where you basically write your test first. You write a test to fail. I personally am not a fan. I mean, I've worked in places where it's very much TDD is everything. You have to write a test first, and then you build the feature until it satisfies the test. I don't know. I'm not a fan. I'm not going to start a war though, because we're on YouTube right now, and this is going to get everyone sort of fighting about TDD versus other styles of development. But yeah, so this is,
I was thinking for one coaching call, could you go, like, you know how you always delete like app.test.js and all those other things? Do you think like you could go over that one time and like explain like
for sure
what it actually is?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the main thing is honestly, truth be told, it's something which I haven't touched on in a while. I mean, but React testing has improved a lot now. And it's actually something which is extremely valuable as well. So it's a really good thing you pointed that out. I'll say as a goal for myself to go ahead and get more knowledge in that area. And eventually we'll have like the end goal, guys, just so that you guys know, is that the modules are going to have everything from A to Z, right? The coaching calls are going to be your way of pretty much skipping the wait, right? You can pretty much go ahead and just kind of like jump in. And what I would say is never wait for that to come around just to be like, oh, I'm going to wait until, you know, I get it. Because truth be told, like, these are just accelerating your growth. All of these extra things are accelerating your growth. If you do every single one of those clones and you go through the coaching course and you pick up all the golden points of each one and you sort of put it in practice, you teach, you coach, take the points that like Priyanshu, that sort of Corey, that Patch, that Athava, that like everyone else that we spoke about today, like take all those points and sort of use that in your development forward. I'm telling you, there is no way you can fail. Like it's going to be something which is going to drastically change your improvement and your progression from being like from going from a junior developer to senior developer in what could be like. And this is one thing I'll tell you is being in an environment and community like this is going to accelerate you so fast. It's ridiculous. Like to the point where you'll be accelerating to a point where I remember I was a junior developer, and just by surrounding myself with different people, I spoke to a senior developer and I asked him, I remember when I was first starting out at work, I said, how long will it take until I can get paid this amount? And I remember he was like 3 years, I would say about 3.5 years. And in about a year, I was getting that. So the point is that you don't need to do that. You don't need to, don't always think that the senior developers know what they're talking about. And even me, don't even think that like I know the answer to everything. Always be proactive in knowing and taking an extra initiative to be ahead of the curve, to keep pushing your knowledge. And remember, the way to easily check if you're doing it is, do you feel uncomfortable right now? As in, like, was this session a bit kind of intense? If it's yes, good, you're in the right place. If it's no, then just push yourself the extra step further. And before we wrap up, I just want to do one final thing and tell each and every one of you, if you're not already signed up, go ahead and go to React Status and sign up to this newsletter. Really awesome newsletter. And it's pretty much how I it's honestly how I keep up to date with React and what's going on. So every single thing.
This might be useful.
Really, really useful. Honestly, really useful. And look here, like create React app versus Next.js versus Gatsby. So honestly, when I'm eating food and stuff, I just kind of flick through my emails and I read this stuff. And this is how I found out about hooks when they first came out. This is how I kept up to date with all of that stuff. Another one is JavaScript Status, I think it is, Status newsletter. And it's the same company, I believe. So JavaScript Weekly. Yeah, so you see same company, but this is all JavaScript as opposed to React. Right. So this is another one that I would recommend you guys go ahead and sign up to.
Priyanshu also said like in the chat that there's apparently a Node Weekly or something like that.
Oh, nice. Node.js Weekly. Let's go ahead and check that one. Node.js Weekly. Oh, nice. Yeah, Node Weekly. Nice, dude. I didn't know that. Okay, I'm going to sign up to that right now. Boom. Subscribed. Oh, I'm already subscribed. Oh. Well, there you go. You know, even I forgot. There's proof in the pudding, guys. I mean, but there you go. Like, I mean, my inbox just gets spammed now. So, you know, you get it.
That might even come to your spam. Like,
yeah, and I get people watching from YouTube who message me saying, hey, I'm stuck on this bit. I'm like, dude, don't email me, man. I'm like, you know.
Like even David sent out emails to us and it landed into my spam folder somehow.
Yeah, it gets buried and all sorts. But yeah, that's awesome. Another one we've got there. But yeah, guys, with that said, let's go ahead and we'll take maybe just a few questions and then we're going to wrap up for today's session because it has been quite a long call, but it's been an amazing call. So wrapping up, let's do maybe 5 minutes max of questions. And then we'll call
Sonny,
it.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is kind of like, did you get time to like try and figure out like a time that we could meet?
Yeah. So let's actually go message me again. Honestly, I'm sorry, dude. It takes like a lot of patience sometimes with me. It can get, especially lately, because we're pushing the React basics. We're pushing a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, which is really like some stuff we can't really talk about, but there's so much stuff that we're like really trying to move forward in one go. So getting on one-to-one calls has been a bit tougher than usual. So I'm trying to make my way through the list. Right now, my Slack is red. I have like a list. I have like that entire sidebar is red at the moment. So every morning I try and go through it, and then the next morning it's red again. So I'm like, okay.
Sonny, quick question.
Yep.
So I was looking at I got laid off and I started with this new trying to get up and running with React.
Okay.
So if I'm trying to redo my resume, I don't want to. So if I want to start at React, it will be basically starting from ground zero, right?
With no,
like in terms of how what should I put on my resume? I don't want to because none of the other skills that I have would directly come into play if I'm looking for like a React full stack position.
See, I disagree, dude. So let's go through your previous things, right? So what were your previous skills that you're disregarding?
So I did like almost like 12, 15 years of, I did some programming in Perl CGI. This was in 2001. I did some Java, XSL, XML
Yep.
type of stuff in 2001. Then I moved over to VB6, VBA,
Yep.
ASP.NET, SQL, and the most recent was SQL Server,
Yep.
hardcore SQL Server, maintenance, writing stored procedures, fine-tuning queries, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And,
Joe, I'd hire you.
Little bit of JavaScript,
Yeah.
little bit of JavaScript. But now coming to this React, I don't see the where they both meet. That's why every time I keep asking you about, are you going to do a live call on the back end stuff? Because I want to see where the marrying happens. So I
Right.
can take this and tie it to the back end type of stuff.
So remember, a lot of the things like man stack builds and stuff like that is the back end. Like, a lot of that is back end. It's just we use a lot of what you would maybe be used to is SQL databases. A lot of the stuff that we do is NoSQL. But don't get me wrong. Like, I worked in 2 companies where it was SQL databases. So you can have React with SQL. This definitely can happen. But what I would say in that sense is Joe, your experience that you listed out there is enough for me to say to you confidently that like I would want to bring this guy on the team because he's got tons of experience in the coding space. Like it doesn't, and remember, this is the one thing you need to kind of detach from. It's not about the language you're coding in. It's about your ability to break down problems and solve them. Right? It doesn't matter what language, all language is just a way of communicating with the computer, right? It really doesn't matter what language you write in. It's like 2 humans speaking to each other. Like if you get good enough, it really doesn't matter if you speak the same language, your body language, your posture. If somebody's speaking French, but they're inspiring millions of people, you can pretty much tell that person is a good speaker, right? Like and what I would say to you is,
you can be a good architect.
Yeah.
Architect.
Exactly. A lot of it's architecture as well. So being exposed to how they did things in Java is going to be transferable to what you're doing now. What I would say, Joe, is my main sort of advice for you is do things like the clones because it's going to give you tangible sort of like things. And
that's fine. Yeah. That's my thing on the agenda. So I did the Amazon clone.
Yeah, the Amazon clone, as many clones as you can do, because the ones which are constantly actually landing jobs, for some reason, these ones are killing it. Spotify clone is killing it. The Amazon clone has landed jobs for people. There was another one, the Hulu clone landed a job for someone. Honestly, it blows my mind. Like, I think at least,
What order should I land? I did the Amazon. Now you think I should do the Spotify, and then what's your order preference?
Joe, I say the truth is do as many as you possibly can for the pattern recognition alone. Like, just doing a build after build after build will literally like dial you in so hard that you'll really get used to JavaScript. You'll really get used to how React works on a fundamental level. You'll get used to sort of how apps piece together. And because I would recommend doing different kinds of builds. So Amazon, you done the full build, right? The one with the payment processing.
Yeah, I did the full stack with the Stripe and everything.
Okay, so awesome. So you actually did
coming on to the front end part with React. And I prefer you to start with the backend part first, like with the Node.js, so you will understand it better.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the React.js is you already doing. So you will understand the whole concept of front end and back end, and you have the good experience in database. So you can be a solution architect for an application. any of the company, you can go with that as a solution architect. So because you know the whole workaround area of that, of the front end, the back end, and the database, so all you have the knowledge.
Exactly.
So
What I
go
would
with the
say,
Node.js.
okay, what I would say is just start, because if you keep thinking on like how should I start, well, like it's less likely to even work. So
I have to agree with
like
Vatava. Yeah.
just think that what you want to make. Just think out what inspires you. Like for me, like the Facebook clone is the one I want to make. So I'll just go and start with that. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Joe, you're crushing it with like a lot of aspects of CP, like as in you're jumping on calls, helping debugging and stuff like that. Main thing is dude, just start with the other builds as well. Like, because the more you'll get under your belt, you'll answer so many of your own questions without realizing,
Right.
you know, and a lot of them have front end, back end functionality. Some things like the Netflix build was like, we used APIs in that, but we didn't use like a backend as such. We kind of we did like communication with APIs, which is somewhat of that area, but it's a lot of it was front end. But then some builds like Facebook and things like that, and even the MERN stack builds, I'd recommend might be better for you, because you're going to get a more natural grasp to what you're used to in terms of like a back-end experience and then a front-end experience. Whereas a lot of the other builds that I've done, like Discord even, was they're a lot more sort of cutting edge front line, which is why you don't actually feel the back end as much, because it's using lightweight things like Firebase to power it. It's using things like that to go ahead and do it.
So when you put this thing in the resume, just bullet it as mock, right? This is not, because this is not live stuff.
Yeah.
So just write mock builds of Amazon clone.
Honestly, I wouldn't, but this is the thing, like even a resume, like honestly, like as in the resume, yeah, have like you've got a bunch of portfolio, but I'll just say, check me out at Joe, at joe.diaz.com or something like that, right? As in get them to that site. Like that should be your primary focus, not having it listed out. Honestly, resumes, the power of a resume is like really, honestly, like not as strong as it used to be. Like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
Just
kind of
like
like
you know, I know how to make this clone stuff. You want to see them? Come here, show them.
Yeah.
Don't be like put them all live, because then you can also have some problems, some issues with copyright and stuff. Otherwise, changing the name and stuff. So you can be like, hey, I know how to make the Amazon clone stuff and Stripe payment solution and etc. etc. And you're like, you want to see how I've done it? Okay, come contact me, or I don't know,
Yeah.
hop in a meeting or look at my site. Then contact me and I show you. I'll maybe give him the file that
Yeah.
you made, so they could add some proof.
Or literally just have a video, like have a video on your
or
site.
even a video, yeah.
Like a little GIF maybe that plays through and it kind of scans through your app or something. And then and be like, oh, don't believe me? Just click this button. And then they click it and they're like, oh shit, I'm inside the app. Like I can play with it. And they can kind of look at it, they can resize it. And then that is telling them so many things in one go. When they'll see like a sign-in feature, which says that you know how to do authentication. They'll try and resize it and they'll be like, oh shit, it's responsive. They'll try and like they'll try and like add products, and they'll be like, oh, so this is React, but he's actually done like React Context API or Redux or something to get the basket functionality going, and that in itself tells them so much more than having like the one thing I hate is having and it was part of the challenge because it's a good thing to have rather than having nothing. But you know when people have a resume or like on their website and it's like skill level React, and it's like a little bar that kind of goes across, HTML bar across, CSS bar across.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I've seen that in many resumes. I don't know what that translates to.
Yeah, because it's like I see that and I'm like,
how can you quantify that? Well, what does that mean? What does the bar mean?
Yeah, like because somebody's bar could be different to your kind of ranking of what the bar would be. It doesn't really mean anything. Like you could list out like 500 skills and be like, I'm an expert. But the reality is that one website which shows everything, and even your portfolio looking amazing. If you had a portfolio saying, hey, I'm Joe, I code in React. This website was built in React. It was deployed on Firebase. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of like, oh shit, okay. Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of like straight away, like a punch in the face. Is like, okay, like this is proof in the pudding. Like, and then here's some companies I worked with, or like here's some proof, or like here's a build that I did. And trust me, the problem is that landing your first job, the tough part is you're trying to convince somebody to give you a job, and then they're going to say to you, what experience do you have? and you typically get caught at that point because you're like, oh, it's my first job, and then you kind of get stuck. So the builds are ways of overcoming it. Because the build, you could be like, yeah, so it's not my first position, but what I did is I actually went ahead and took the initiative. I built all these clones. And I'd be like, oh shit, okay, so you can code. We know you can code. That's it. Like, and then you kind of discuss and you build the trust from that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Also, another thing is work on clones that you have like a passion for, that you want to do.
Yeah.
Not something like, oh, you don't, because if you run into a bug or anything, then you have the motivation to like drive through it and solve it.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
I just got a quick notice from fast.io. I don't know how many of you uses fast.io, but it says that free accounts will no longer be available and will only be working until December.
Okay.
So after December, they're just going to be focusing on a free trial instead of a full trial experience of fast.io.
So that's even more reason, guys, to go ahead and learn Firebase.
Hey, Sonny, I have a question.
Yeah.
At some point, are we going to see some content around headless CMS?
So headless CMS. So I've actually worked with somebody who built a really cool headless CMS. We can definitely touch on it and do that. Yeah, there's always like room for doing something new. A lot of these sessions, so just to fill you in, Victor, like a lot of the sessions are directed by you guys. So there was some interest in Redux, which meant that pretty much we naturally went towards Redux, taught a bunch of Redux stuff, which is why we've done loads of sessions on Redux. Then there was sessions about, there was more sessions about like design work and responsive design. So we did some responsive stuff. So it's like very much driven around demand and what, like what people want to kind of go into. But for sure, like if like CMS is something, so a lot of people have asked about admin panels and stuff like that. I've seen some people ask about that before. So we could maybe go into CMS or that sort of stuff. But the problem is that the only reason why I'm hesitant with CMS is because CMS is the value that it would bring you in terms of landing the first job and things like that. It's more of like if you're already a sort of intermediate developer, then learning CMS adds to your stack, as opposed to the fundamentals of really you should dial in on the fundamentals first and all that stuff, and then kind of add the CMS to your arsenal of weapons. Otherwise, building CMS without the fundamentals can kind of get a bit kind of, like a little bit kind of like, oh, what's going on here? Like, but it's definitely something which is good that you're questioning it now, because that's a really good thing to get into. Yeah.
I got my toes in there, and I completely failed because I didn't have the fundamentals of React down. So.
Dude, but that's the good thing. That's a good step, because like think of a kid, like a kid falls over, they get back up, and eventually they fall over again, and eventually they're running, like so keep doing the same shit. Like as in it's good if you're failing at something because you're trying something new and you're putting yourself out there, so awesome stuff, dude.
I was going to second for CMS because I get a lot of clients that want the foundation down, but then they also want to be able to update things on their own.
Yep. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point. So remember earlier, I can't remember who asked the exact question, but it was a case of a Russian website. I think it was Max asked it earlier. It was about a question. There's a website that you need to build. And so remember, I talked about the escape, right? So once you deliver the work, you don't want to be tied to the company forever, right? You need to either build it in a CMS fashion, like Gabriel said, like Victor said, like so build that sort of implementation in and kind of have it so they can then manage everything. Or you need to kind of actually ask yourself like, okay, I can either go ahead and try and build everything, or I can kind of get more skilled at something like Shopify or something like, like WordPress plus a plugin. And pretty much that's going to allow me to knock out freelancing jobs, boom, 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 and get them done, allow me to offload the client and actually make more money that way. So it really depends on your goal and what you're trying to work towards. But I've seen people crush it with Spotify and WordPress like combinations and stuff like that. If your angle is towards freelance, I'm not a huge fan of freelancing anymore because I don't like having several. I mean, I like to be my own kind of boss with my work. Like I don't like to kind of, but whereas think of it this way, when you're a freelancer, you've got like 5 bosses if you have 5 jobs, right? So you have to reply to 5 people. They're really on your case at times. So it can get a bit kind of hectic and stuff. And if you're not good with time management, that can really get intense. So, And like Gabriel said, like once you've delivered the work, you kind of want to be able to deliver it like and elegantly step away. Like you don't want to be like, oh, here's the work and run for the hills. Like your reputation counts, so you want to keep a good vibe around
I had
that.
a similar case of that. I did once there was a company.
Yeah.
I went there to buy a phone, right? And then they asked me, "Hey Sam, can you come around the deck?" And they showed me a program they have to like gesture all the stocks they have and all of the stuff, right? Because I had to communicate with a company which was far away from there.
Yeah.
Well, from Malta to Japan, I think. I have no idea. Anyway, they said, "Can you build something similar to that?" And I said, "I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I have no idea because they wanted an admin panel, and then they've got the application where they just can see the stuff. But to actually input the stuff, you had to have an admin panel.
Right.
So I tried building something similar, and I don't know, they liked it, so I gave them.
Yeah.
And then I was so afraid because it was one of my first jobs.
Yeah.
I did it for free. And I literally went in the shop. I said, "Here you go. You have the project," and I ran away.
Yeah, dude, I don't blame you. We've all been there. We've all been there.
Literally ran away. There was my father waiting for me.
Yeah.
Outside the shop, and he's like, he saw me running. He's like, the hell just happened inside there? I said, it's okay. I just ran away.
Oh my God, yeah, guys, you gotta be careful with that because now your profile is on Upwork and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, but Sonny, I mean, if you feel that the client needs help and ongoing basis, you can still have a revenue stream coming in and saying, "Hey, I will charge you X amount to maintain it for a year." You go touch it 2 times.
I know.
Yeah.
And you have a revenue stream for yourself. Then you just look at it for a couple of times a year, and you got that money coming in.
Yeah.
The thing is that I was scared.
You can do that, definitely.
That was my very first thing, and I said I don't want to be tied to that. I'll be like, okay, I'm making my first thing and I'm giving it to them. Now let's say after 2 months, then something breaks and they call me to fix it. What if I don't know how to fix it? And that got me scared. Or be like, what if I have other projects, like I want to make some other websites, or I want to make my own application, stuff like that. I can't because I was thinking, well, I'm tied to them, so I'm kind of working for them and they're my boss.
Yeah.
So I was getting this afraidness over there.
Yeah.
It's just,
no, dude. I mean, like, look, it happens. The main, like Joe said, there is a benefit to then keeping them on board with that stuff, like as in afterwards to do maintenance and things like that, because you can pretty much go ahead and charge the client like a maintenance fee, which a lot of people do, right? But what I would say is,
I'm doing it as for now. I just switched totally. Now I'm doing it.
You just switched account name, switched email address, just changed address, flew to Malta.
Yeah.
No, but what I would say is like if you're gonna go that approach, not the running approach, is in the maintenance approach. But if you're gonna go down that route, what I would say is you can definitely go ahead and open something like a software house. So remember, your network is your net worth for many reasons, right? Not one, for landing clients, but 2, for also for developers who you can leverage as friends and sort of like potential partners, right? Now imagine you're doing well with freelancing, you're networking with other people who are doing well with freelancing. There's kind of a business opportunity that kind of pops up, right? You have a software house kind of that comes into play. Now you can pretty much go to a higher level where you don't have to code as much, but you become an architect, right? So you can actually go ahead and like bring in sort of developers. In the beginning, you're going to be doing the work, right? You're going to be doing a lot of the work. But if you get really kind of a dialed in system of like being able to bring on developers, them adhere to sort of your coding standards, so your projects are getting built, your sort of everything's kind of maintained at a good standard, because that's for everything is your standard. Your reputation is going to be everything. If you break I see Gabriel's like, yep, I agree with that, because remember, like, contractors can come in, trash everything, and then kind of leave, and it can leave shit in like a mess, and your reputation goes down to like really, really bad like after that. But it's going to be a case of you can go ahead and do that, and I have friends who have done that. And Jacob, I don't know if you guys know who Jacob is. He used to be on the channel, but we keep in touch with Jacob a lot. He done Profit with Python for a long time. Jacob's an awesome guy, and he's doing
quite good in Upwork. I watched his video today.
Yeah,
he was doing a demo on how to use AWS Marketplace API.
Yeah, so Exactly. Yeah. So he's doing his own software house right now with a friend. So it just goes to show you, like, all you need is, like, he just got one other person, and he pretty much went ahead and you know, like, started that as his journey, and pretty much now working for himself on his own hours. It's completely possible, completely feasible, and it's something which you guys can definitely do. With that said, guys, that was an awesome call. I hope you guys found value in that. There was I think that was jam-packed, and I'm really glad because I saw this was actually this is a huge call. This was
4 hours.
it's a 4-hour call.
Yeah, this was insane.
Yeah,
Must
like
be the longest
I just
one.
had to
Must be the
excuse all of
longest
you guys.
Yeah, really, really big call. I think loads of value bombs in this one, and even on YouTube, and we still have 176 people, and we actually peaked at around 300-400 people, which is amazing. So everyone on YouTube, smash the thumbs up button if you enjoyed it and you're still watching. Thank you so much for watching. And
Sonny, Red Bulls did you go through?
what was that?
How many Red Bulls did you go through?
Oh, dude, I just got my water. That's it. This is me and my good water. Look, I finished one glass, and then that's it. I got the other one there. Yeah.
We got 400 likes on YouTube.
That's it. Awesome stuff, guys.
I logged into YouTube myself and just hit the like button, even though I'm on here.
Nice, Gabriel. Thank you, dude. With that said, guys, I will see you all next week, and over on YouTube, we'll see you in the next build. I think we're aiming for every single day, so we're going to keep it going. And yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next call.
Yes, Sonny,
Yeah.
will we have a clone of Clever Programmer?
Oh, dude, I mean, well, let's wait until we hit 1 million subs. Let's wait until we hit 1 million subs, and then we'll do it.
Okay, guys.
Yeah?
I don't know if
I was thinking of
Clever
that as
Programmer
well.
is telling how to get PWJ for free.
Exactly. Awesome,
You asked
guys.
something about the Kajabi clone, didn't you? Basically, with this school, I tried diverging the course I'm doing. So I went to the headmaster of the school and I told him if I could make something similar. He totally doesn't know this course. So basically, what I ended up doing is that I'm a student of the school, and I'm currently in the 4th grade. And now I'm actually even a teacher on that school, which teaches to other teachers.
Dope,
Basically,
dude.
I'm building a similar thing of Kajabi,
Yeah.
just for my school. So only my school will be using it.
Nice.
Which is mind blowing, totally.
Dope, man. That's insane, dude.
I still
Hopefully,
don't know how I'm gonna do it.
yeah,
What?
document your journey and let everyone know and see you on, on socials and
will do
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
Last time I was talking with Joe, and he said, I mean, we agreed on the fact that maybe I should be documenting this stuff.
Yeah. 100%, dude. Document it and let us know how it goes. Guys, I will see you all next week, and keep working hard. And remember, reach out on Slack if you have questions. I'm going to try my best to get through all those messages, okay? And yeah, see you guys next week. Peace,
Thanks,
guys.
Sonny.
See you guys there.
Bye, everyone.
Question, if you don't mind.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye. Everyone over on YouTube, thank you so much for watching, guys. And it was an insane turnout. We still have 150 people watching. So everyone who is there right now, thank you. And loads of people asking what this song is lately. So I'll go ahead and find that and let you guys know in the next video. But yeah, we're going to be keeping the builds coming for you guys. So make sure you stay tuned. And as always, guys, we will see you in the next video. Peace.